It's that time of year again. Time to look over Disney's best and not so best. I've been doing these Disneycembers for several years, and every year I try to have a certain theme to them, whether they be the hand-drawn animated films, the CG animated films, the direct-to-DVD movies, and so forth. And in that time, Disney has just gotten bigger and bigger, swallowing up more companies and trying out different things and styles. So even if I was to pick one theme again, there's so many new movies and shows that are constantly coming out that I feel like it'd be kind of a shame not to talk about them. Well, last year the theme was by popular demand, and it seemed to go over pretty well. I liked it because I could kinda talk about whatever I wanted. I wasn't bound to just one thing. So that seems like the best route to go. From here on out, Disneycember is just gonna be one giant grab bag. Because every time I do a theme month, everybody says, you missed this one, or you forgot this one. Well, from now on, I'm not bound by anything. It just has to have Disney's name on it and be watchable. Well, for the most part. The one thing I do want to add this year, though, is Disney TV shows. Now, if you've watched Nostalgia Critic, you know I've talked about Disney TV shows a lot with Disney Afternoon and DuckTales and so on. But these are going to be ones that I either thought would make a very good Nostalgia Critic episode, or I just want to look back and reanalyze, see if my thoughts have changed on it at all. The one qualification is it has to be a show that's ran its course, like all the episodes are available and I can watch them, so that way there's no surprises if suddenly the show goes downhill and I wasn't there to talk about it. So this Disneycember, the sky's the limit, whether it be live action, animated, TV, movie, DVD, whatever. If I think it's worth talking about, I'm gonna talk about it. So sit back and enjoy, this is Disneycember 2019. Well, since I said I was gonna include TV shows this time around, might as well start with a TV show. House of Mouse. So yeah, this show was well past my time when it came out. I was just starting college when this show premiered, and even if I was a little younger, it just doesn't seem like the age group it was meant for. This is clearly meant for, well, little kids. So why am I taking a look at it? Well, a couple reasons. One, just because it's for little kids doesn't necessarily mean there can't be something of value to it. It can still be creative, funny, and new. Second, it's grown quite the popularity over the years. I mean, okay, not as much as its other Disney properties, but you mentioned House of Mouse and a lot of people seem to know what you're talking about, or at least have a general idea. And finally, I think it is a pretty clever concept. There's a rockin' place where you can get dinner at a show called House of Mouse. It's owned by the four-finger one himself, Mickey, ran by his colorful friends you know by name, Goofy, Donald, and so forth. And the guests that show up are all Disney cinematic animated characters. You name it, the Little Mermaid, the Beast, Aladdin, Snow White, all those classics. They usually sit around making conversation and jokes while they run a cartoon as they eat their dinner. Though it is weird to see people watching Goofy on the big screen and then have him also kind of serve your table. It's a little odd. They're actually, maybe it's a little too realistic. They always say if you want to be an actor, the best book to read is this. And generally, that's the setup of the show. Usually it focuses more on the main staff, with Mickey getting in trouble, or Goofy getting in trouble, Donald, whatever. And the cinematic guests either being unaware of the trouble and just respond to the short that's being shown, or become alerted to it and react to it in the over-the-top manner that their character would. In my opinion, the show works best when they show the classic cartoons as the shorts. I like it because it mixes three different types of humor. One is the mostly timeless humor of the 1940s, another is seeing those same characters reacting to an updated environment, and the third being the cinematic characters' reactions to both. When they show the newly animated shorts, it doesn't seem to have the same timing or speed or magic that the original had. There was a sense you could get away with a little bit more in the older shorts because the characters were still being established a little bit and they could be a little bit more violent or mean. They're by no means awful shorts, they're well animated and such, it just kinda looks like they're trying to recapture what they did in the past and they're just not gonna do it as well because the characters are too familiar and too family friendly. How often are you gonna see Donald Duck hold a gun anymore? With that said, that's also kinda one of the problems of the show. The original shorts worked because they knew the strengths of their character. Goofy was funniest when he didn't talk, Donald was funniest when he was angry, and the Mickey Mouse cartoons usually weren't funny, they were more creative, they were whimsical, they were magical, you watched it to see something really imaginative. So when you focus on them as the main characters in what's essentially supposed to be a really funny scenario in each episode, well, that's not necessarily bad, it's not exactly hilarious either. A lot of these scenarios are good scenarios. They're kind of the classic restaurant on fire, or somebody not showing up, or somebody has to stall and do something else for the crowd. These are routines that have been done for years, and they're usually pretty funny. But you know that Mickey always has to be nice and he always has to have that pleasant voice. Goofy always has to talk and be clumsy so he can't be really mean or angry, or there can be a lot of them like in the old shorts. Donald can mostly be the same, but because Daisy has a much more prominent role in this one and she has a nicer, kinder voice because that's kind of what she was in the original, she was just kind of a side character, now she's a prominent character here, they can't get as many strong laughs. Even when both the writing and the animation is right on point. Look at this scene where Mickey and Minnie come back and the place is destroyed. Those expressions are great. Donald and Daisy quitting to go on vacation after all this shit happened is also great. But when you hear those perfected, non-threatening voices come out of them, it immediately loses its edge.
We need to tell you something.
You don't say.
What happened? We can't handle it.
The same can almost be said for the cinematic characters, although it's kind of in reverse. The jokes with them are mostly hit and miss, and when they miss, it is kind of awkward. But when they hit, it is pretty funny. Especially because, like I said a moment ago, it's reversed. It's not silly characters acting serious, it's serious characters now acting silly. It's funny to see Disney heroes and villains just take some time off, relax, have something to eat, and just chill. They try to act like normal people even though we know they're the least normal people in the world. So yeah, their stuff is kind of in the middle, some hit, some don't. But let's be honest, the reason this show is remembered and so many kids liked it is because it's just a cool idea. The novelty of seeing every animated Disney character in one spot is really neat. Even if they're not necessarily doing anything funny, it's just cool to see these characters all together. It's kind of like in Roger Rabbit. Or those old Cartoon Network bumpers. There's just something so awesome seeing these characters interact with one another. That kind of stuff gets a lot of kids excited, and I'd be lying if I didn't say the inner kid inside of me didn't get excited just seeing these characters side by side. Sometimes they'll have little crossovers, like all the villains will get together and toss the good guys out. I'm not really laughing that hard at it, but how is it not cool to see all these famous Disney baddies side by side, from Hades to Captain Hook to Ursula to the Siamese cats from Lady and the Tramp? The detail they have in trying to include every character they can possibly think of is really something. So yeah, I guess your enjoyment of the show really centers around how much of a Disney fan you are and how forgiving you are of it. If you're someone that likes Disney but aren't really obsessed with them, then this probably isn't the show for you. But if you're one of those people that likes to see all the different Disney characters just stand next to each other and have a conversation, it's okay. Like I said, it is mainly aimed for little kids, and yes, there's an occasional adult joke here or there, but they never lose track of their audience. It's for little kids. So while the older adult in me was saying you can make this a lot better, you could tighten that joke, you could change this delivery and so forth, the little child inside of me is just so excited to see every Disney character I ever grew up with in one place. So is it timeless? No. Is it going to be remembered through the ages? Probably not. It's not even really anything that impressive to be celebrated, but if your Disney nostalgia is strong and you still have that inner fanboy or fangirl that just squeeze every time you see a certain character or characters together, it might be worth checking out an episode or two. Well, you know my thoughts on the Disney remakes and how there's way too many of them and how every time one comes out I just want to go insane, and well, now we have Dumbo, one that did not give very good critical reviews and also didn't get a very good audience reaction, and yeah, I can see why. I mean, it's not like it's a big mystery, but I almost liked this one. Now, keep in mind the word is almost. It's still not a good movie, but at the same time, there are some elements in it that made me glad I checked it out. I know that sounds insane because the bad elements in it are really bad, but the good elements in it, I really found myself kind of getting sucked into. Sometimes I even thought this is what a Disney remake should be like. No, I haven't gone nuts. Let me explain. The story centers around a soldier, played by Colin Farrell, who returns home to his two beautifully wooden kids with only one arm. This is devastating as he wants his job back at the circus, but with only one arm, he can't do the stuff he used to. The ringmaster, played by Danny DeVito, insists on giving him every chance he can though, trying him out at different jobs. Around the same time, Jumbo gives birth to a little baby elephant named Jumbo Jr., or eventually, Dumbo. As you might have heard, he has really big ears, which everybody goes, "What are those? Big ears? At a circus? What?" Okay, to their credit, they already say they have enough freaks in the freak show, so this would be distracting. Regardless, the crowds don't react well to him and his mother tries to protect him, resulting in her getting locked up and sold off. It's eventually discovered, though, that Dumbo can fly with those big ears. Yep, this happens in the first third instead of the last third. And the owner of a theme park named Dreamland, played by Michael Keaton, says he wants to buy Dumbo for his latest attraction as well as incorporate the rest of the circus, giving them a new home. The ringmaster agrees, but when Dumbo discovers his mother is at Dreamland, well, things get complicated. Kinda stupidly complicated. He ruins a show because he hears his mother and so he flies towards her. The solution is to get rid of the mother. What the hell are you talking about? Just release the mother, have them be together. Hell, have the mother in the same room with him so that he can fly around better. This is such an obvious solution. But nah, they just kinda need bad guys and we need good guys to rush into burning buildings and Dumbo to fly realizing he doesn't need the feather, and yeah, pretty much everything you think would happen in a film like this happens. So, alright, sounds pretty lame, and yeah, I guess it is. But there's several elements of this movie I found myself surprisingly enjoying. A lot of that comes from the atmosphere, and I know what you're thinking, it's a Tim Burton movie, he always has pretty good atmosphere, but he doesn't always. Sometimes he'll have good visuals, and hell, most of the time he'll have good visuals, but it's not always atmospheric. This one really is. Look at those backgrounds, look at the lighting, look at the reactions on these characters. Even the music by Danny Elfman I've kind of made fun of, he hasn't made that big of an impression on me lately, but this music is really great. I feel like all of this kind of comes together to create this really visual storytelling. I like how when they're trying to figure out where to put Dumbo so they try him in different jobs and stuff, Colin Farrell is going through the same thing. And because the animals don't talk, you can really see this connection between the two of them as being outcasts. I like the community that kind of forms around these circus folk too. They have these distinct personalities that, okay, aren't fantastic, but I still believe them as a big group. I love when the snake guy gets angry so he just kicks over the snakes to attack the people. I like the acrobat, who definitely has a sleazy side, but kind of has a good side too. I like how loving DeVito is as the ringmaster. I like how sympathetic Farrell is. I legit found myself caring about a lot of these people. The ones I don't care for, sadly, are the main characters, these two kids. You've probably heard over and over, they are so flat. And yeah, they really are. Distractingly so. Maybe because I have warning going in, I didn't pay as much attention to it, but yeah, whenever they talk, particularly the girl, it is really off.
What's happening? Where are they taking her? Dad, please, stop them. Do something. Mom would have done something.
Yikes.
And I don't blame them. I mean, Burton has had a long history of choosing people that have these deep sunken eyes, but not always the best acting. When he does get good actors, it's great. He seems to really like people who are odd looking, and for whatever reason, people who are odd looking a lot of times are good actors. But whether it's the director or the casting agent, this clearly didn't work. I'm not exactly sure what Michael Keaton is doing at this performance either. I mean, I always like watching him, he's super entertaining, but it seems like his voice keeps changing and he doesn't always have a very distinct character. Dumbo himself, though, is pretty likable, and like most of the effects, he's not really convincing, but he is very charming. I feel like in a lot of Burton movies, the effects don't have to look real, they just have to look good, and Dumbo looks good in this. As do a lot of the weird images you would expect to see in a Tim Burton movie, including a pink elephant sequence that, yes, a lot of people were warning me is nothing like the original, but I kind of expected that. You can't really get Dumbo drunk, and yeah, where can you fit a scene like this in this kind of movie? But it's still a weird, trippy scene, and yeah, it's kind of pointless, but again, I kind of like the music, I like the weird bounciness of it. It's hypnotizing in a way. Perhaps the biggest problem with the movie is that Dumbo, let's be honest, was already a Tim Burton movie. It's kind of like Alice in Wonderland. It's already a Tim Burton film. The only thing that could ruin it is Tim Burton. He likes his visuals, he likes his outcast, but outside of that, he doesn't really care much about the written word. Or half the time, even the story. So it's tricky, because on the one hand, I could see myself really enjoying this film if I, put it on mute. Yeah, I know that sounds strange, but if they treated this like a silent film with just the music and the visuals and we had to kind of guess what was going on, I may actually really enjoy this film. It's essentially the same story as Dumbo, but it's just different enough. The animals don't talk and things happen in a different order and it still has a beginning, middle, and end. Again, I kind of feel like this is what Disney remakes should kind of be doing. But it's not a silent film. It is one where you have to write dialogue that has to be convincing or charming, and that's not what we get here. So does it work? No. But am I happy I saw it? Weirdly, yes. And not in a it's so bad it's good. I mean, the good elements are so enjoyable, I wouldn't have regretted seeing this in the theater. But yes, the original is clearly better, and if you're gonna be distracted by really flat, hokey acting and predictable stories, then this isn't gonna be the movie for you. Usually it's not the kind of movie for me. But with the music and the backgrounds and the lighting and the atmosphere and the cinematography, I don't know, those elements surprisingly grab me. Enough to say it's good? No, but I guess like Dumbo himself, I did take more out of it than I expected to. Well, you guys definitely let me know when I missed this one. Doctor Strange! This technically should have been in last year's Disneycember, but I just didn't really have the time or room to fit it in, and, well, I'm making up for it now, so here we go. Doctor Strange is definitely not a film to be ignored in the MCU, as visually it's amazing. Its ideas are pretty cool too, even if the story is your typical Marvel Cinematic Universe story, as a lot of people have pointed out. Stephen Strange is one of the world's best neurosurgeons, but he's also cocky as hell. He throws himself more into his work than he does his friends, but one day he gets in an awful accident. His hands are destroyed and he can never operate again. I also think it did something to his American accent. It's a little wonky. Over time, though, he discovers a powerful being called the Ancient One, who knows how to alter reality, open parallel dimensions, different timelines, pretty much anything that can blow your mind. He has to train with her, but she refuses, thinking he's not ready yet. His persistence eventually pays off, though, and he's invited in to be trained. Over time, he learns not only how to heal himself, but also how to manipulate the world around him, open up different realms and universes, and even be introduced to new devices, including a cape that seems to have a mind of its own. But forgettable Marvel villain number Billion comes along and says that he wants the ultimate power for himself. He used to work with the Ancient One, but he stabs her in the back because he wants more of the secrets, more of the power, more of the usual bad guy stuff you expect from bad guys in the MCU. Can Doctor Strange stop him while also putting reality back to normal? Is there even a normal after everything he's discovered? Well, there must be, because this follows very by the numbers the Marvel formula. Now for some, that's gonna be a turnoff, because there's a ton of these Marvel movies, and they do follow kind of a formula, but for a lot of people, there's enough creativity and laughs and character and drama, and yeah, I mostly felt the same way, but the big tipping point for me was the visuals. I've just never seen a Marvel film that looked this massive. This is like watching Inception just fold in on itself. I mean, okay, Inception already kind of did that, but if that was a fold, this is one of those paper things girls make to find out who has cooties. It's like someone took some mind-altering drugs and then was given a lot of money to bring it to the big screen, but as clear and solid as possible. If Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a bad trip, then Doctor Strange is definitely a good trip. So much so that, yeah, I do kind of wish these visuals and ideas were kind of put to something with a little more substance. Not to say there's no substance, I mean, they do have us care for the characters and their dilemmas, and the action is great, and I do like everybody. You know, aside from the stock villain again, but everyone else I do legit enjoy their connections and the creativity around their different styles. But I do kind of wish this was used for something a little bigger, like a Black Panther story or a Infinity War story, something like that. Regardless, as these superhero stories go, it is a fun one. It's action-packed, clever, funny, has its proper dramatic moments. But yes, it's the visual trip-out scenes that project it into something more unique. If you took them away, it'd probably just be your standard Marvel movie, but this really projects it into something different and new. In terms of story and character, Doctor Strange mostly plays it safe, but it plays it creatively safe. I can still watch these action sequences and be blown away every single time I watch them. The amount of time, effort, and technology that must have gone into it is just mind-blowing. So yeah, if you're looking for something that's new and groundbreaking in terms of telling a cinematic story or even a Marvel film, it's not exactly that. It's a basic, straightforward superhero flick. But if you're looking for that kind of flick with mind-blowing visuals and unbelievable imagination, then this is the Something Strange for you. me ask you something. You know these kind of Toy Story shorts that came out for a while? Like they had one around Halloween and then one that ran just as a little special on ABC and such? If they made those longer and said this was Toy Story 4, would you be happy? Would you be like, yeah, that feels right, that's how it's supposed to go? My guess is no. And that is the exact problem I have with Toy Story 4. It doesn't need to exist, it's not that funny, there's nothing really that creative or new about it. But it has a nice enough message with characters that you like, so everyone seemed to be okay with it. I don't get it. Not to say this movie is awful, it clearly isn't, but as you've probably heard me say before, I hold these movies to a very high standard. It was a great trilogy. 3 I wasn't even 100% on board with, but I liked it enough and I thought it was a solid ending. I thought it wrapped things up pretty well. But nope, we have to have this ensemble movie where they're not really much of an ensemble anymore, and the characters that you really like are either reduced down to serve these one lame running jokes or cameos here and there, but look, Bo Peep is back, and she looks more like Elsa than Bo Peep. Okay, let me balance this out before a lot of people kill me. The movie starts out actually really solid, not just from an animation standpoint. I mean, my God, looking at this and just thinking back to the first film, I can't believe how far they've come. But in terms of story, we see Woody saying goodbye to Bo as she's going to be given away. And it's actually a very kind of panicky, anxiety-provoking scene. It's like the last time you're gonna see someone, he didn't know it was gonna happen, and he's trying to figure out if he goes with or does he stay behind, and it's really, really well done. I was actually like, holy smokes, I may actually love this. And for a while, the movie continues on that path. You see, Woody and the toys are fitting in pretty well with the new owner, but Woody's discovering he's not #1 toy anymore. Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. But it's different than just ego this time. Now it's feeling more like self-worth. Who does he look after? Who does he help? What is his importance? Well, their owner makes a brand new toy out of a spork that she calls Forky, who's so confused about his existence, he keeps confusing himself for trash and keeps trying to go in the trash. That's actually really funny. But Woody tries to tell him he's a toy and has this great responsibility to be by his owner. Give credit that the whole movie wasn't about this. Everybody thought I was gonna go this route. Like, no, I'm not a toy, I'm just garbage. No, you're something special, depends on your point of view, blah, blah, blah. I'm glad they don't do that. It wouldn't have been bad, it just would have been too obvious. Woody and the new toy get separated though. Gee, haven't seen that yet. And they come across a new place with all sorts of creepy bad toys. Gee, haven't seen that yet. And they're led by this one toy who looks sweet but is actually diabolical and has an evil plan. Haven't seen that? Yeah, okay, you get the problem. But here's something brand new, an old character we already know. Bo Peep comes in to save Woody as it looks like she's really enjoying her time not having an owner anymore. She considers herself a lost toy and doesn't really see any problem with that. Woody, on the other hand, can't quite figure out what he is, almost in the same way Forky can't figure out what he is, and hey, what happened to the other toys? Oh yeah, they're over there. Buzz has a running joke about listening to his inner voice, and so he pushes a button and he keeps trying to do what it says, even though it's just like 5 sayings, and yeah, that's stupid. Jessie does a few things, sometimes. The Potato Heads have some recordings from the other movies, because, you know, the voice actors are dead. I forget if Slink has a line. But looky here, they have to escape this dangerous pet, which again, haven't seen that before, but this one's really creepy. Actually, it's not. It's just a normal cat. I mean, God, can't you just make it either super cute or super scary? I mean, do something with this, something to stand out, something to justify your existence. How ironic is that? The whole film is about justifying your existence while it's barely justifying its existence. All of this I would be more forgiving of if it was either A, really funny, or B, poignant enough that it needed to exist. I don't think it's either. Once in a while I'll get a little laugh, but for me, a lot of the jokes were just falling flat. Even when I saw it, I wasn't hearing that much laughter out of the theater. More kind of pity laugh, like, well, isn't it cute a cartoon character said that, but nothing like the other 3. And the message is good. I actually really like it doesn't just end on the status quo. There is actual evolving of the characters and a legit change by the end. But I feel like this movie should have been called Woody the Cowboy, because that's what it's about. And every time they have to shoehorn in these other toys like Buzz or Jessie or any of the others, it just feels weird and out of place. If they changed the title, pushed them to the sidelines and really upped the comedy, then maybe I would see this as a legit good film. I mean, one of my big complaints in Toy Story 3 was they just got rid of Bo off screen. It kind of seemed insulting, and now here she is, and she has an interesting personality, and arc, and backstory, and cool. Doesn't tie into the rest of the toys much like the other movies did. I mean, don't get me wrong, I know Woody's the main character and Buzz kind of is too, but there was this feeling of appropriate shared time. Like, not everybody got the exact same amount of time, but you remember the lines that Mr. Potato Head said, you remember the lines that Slinky said, you remember these characters because they left such an impact. If I saw this movie without seeing the other three, I wouldn't remember Potato Head, I wouldn't remember Slink, I don't even know if I'd remember Jessie. The one scene I thought really elevated it, not just as a Toy Story movie, but as a Pixar movie too, is the scene where the villain doll finds this lost child, and I won't go too much into it, but it's actually pretty deep and kind of profound. It actually had a lot of layers to it, which I felt the Toy Story films did. It's a short, simple scene, but it really speaks on a lot of levels, and I was really wishing the rest of the movie would do that. So yeah, I guess it starts off strong and ends pretty strong, but everything else just feels unneeded. And I know what you're thinking, come on, just relax, it's a kid's film, it's Toy Story, you're not supposed to think that deep about it, but the makers thought that deep about it. They did with the first one, the second one, and the third one. And this one, I'm sure they did, but they clearly didn't make it because they wanted to, because the story had to continue. They made it because we need another Toy Story. They disguise it well in many areas and do have some good messages and an occasional good laugh, but nothing ever felt like this needed to exist. Now with that said, some people don't mind. A lot of people see it saying, yeah, I didn't think it needed to exist, but it was nice enough, it got a few laughs, and that was pretty cool what it said at the end. And you know what? Awesome. If you got something out of this, I think that's fantastic. I'd rather people get something out of a film I don't like than hate it on the same level that I hate it. And I don't hate this, I just don't like it. If this movie really moved you, continue to let it move you. But me personally, I'm putting this one back in the toy chest. If you were to take X-Files, Twin Peaks, and mix it together with Adventure Time, you probably get something as awesome as Gravity Falls. It's no secret I absolutely love this show, I even dedicated part of a Disneycember to doing vlogs on it. But several years have passed and I've had time to think about it a little bit more, and I wanted to see if anything has changed upon revisiting it. I'm happy to say, not really. The shows that came out prior to Gravity Falls and the shows that came out after Gravity Falls, especially on the Disney Channel, shows the impact that it had. People still dress up like the characters, people still purchase the merchandise. And Disney, in one form or another, tries to replicate its success with both children and adults. But let's be honest, there's only one Gravity Falls. The show centers around a boy and girl named Dipper and Mabel, who are stuck with their greedy Uncle Stan, or Grunkle Stan as they call him, who owns a mystery shack that's always trying to sucker tourists. He has two workers, a bumbling doofus named Seuss, and a frat girl named Wendy. Together, they all try to figure out the mysteries and odd going-ons of Gravity Falls, particularly with the codes and documented stories from this mysterious book that has 6 fingers on it and the number 3. I remember the first time I saw this show, somebody gave me a DVD at a convention. She said it just seemed like something that was up my alley. Looking at the cover and the dark shadows and the weird animation, but yet how colorful it was too, I kinda knew she would be right. I popped in the first episode and I liked it okay, it made me laugh and the characters seemed kinda cute. But what immediately hooked me was Grunkle Stan going down the secret passage in his mystery shack, and they never addressed what it was. Not in the next episode, not in the episode after, it was just kind of a continuing mystery. And as I kept watching, more and more mysteries kept popping up like that. Sometimes you got answers very quickly, sometimes they took a really long time, sometimes you wouldn't get all the answers until the very, very end. This is a type of show that had been done all the time in anime, but in TV, not a ton. I think the closest thing I could think of at the time was probably Lost, and that was a big hit. And I'm not going to say Gravity Falls was the first American kids show to do this, but it does feel like it was one of the bigger ones to go all the way with it. But the great thing is, let's say you're not really into long drawn-out stories or mysteries. The show still works episodically too. You can watch it as a comedy and get really good laughs, and a lot of them are very focused on adults, but not too much. It's something where kids can watch it and really enjoy the characters and how zany and over the top it is. But there's a lot of callback to grown-up movies, TV shows, pop culture, and just general grown-up awkward situations, like dating, socializing, keeping a job. So the show has a little something for everybody. If you're into figuring stuff out, every episode has a new code, a new puzzle, a new clue in the background or in the foreground or just somewhere in the show that connects to something larger. But if you're just into having a good time, there's a lot of funny characters and funny situations and clever ideas. A lot of the episodes have like a Twilight Zone feel, but more with an 80s, 90s edge to it. Like we've seen tons of episodes of some form of technology coming to life, but never with a game like Street Fighter or a dating game. Stuff that takes the interaction of nowadays and combines it with the nostalgia of the past, but also while creating new characters, games, and stories. If I had to say how much of the show was for adults and how much was for kids, I would definitely say about 80% of it is for adults. Like, this is Simpsons-style writing just without the swear words. Now with that said, there is still that 20% that's not only for kids, but is very much for Disney kids. Every episode has a lesson, a moral, something that has to be really spelled out so the kids can be like, ooh, I learned something today. And they're fine. I think a lot of adults will be more interested in the stories and mysteries without the little lessons thrown in, but again, it is a kid show, it's on the Disney Channel, it's amazing we got this at all. So many show finales nowadays always blow their load at the end. They always make it too big, too small, or just don't give the people what they want. I don't know anyone that doesn't love the ending of Gravity Falls. Everything put together just seems to flow perfectly. If there's ever a goof up or a lesser episode, it's just a goof up or a lesser episode. It doesn't ruin anything. I feel like years from now, people are still going to be talking about this show, how beautifully animated it was, how clever the stories were, how funny the characters are. It's funny how it combines so many familiar things to make something that's so unique and new. And it's funny, and dramatic, and charming, and creative, and great in the short term, but also great in the long term. It's about growing up, but also about just going on goofy adventures. It's small, it's big, it's subtle, it's over the top, it's so much you want in a show. Any complaints I have are nitpicks, and honestly when I look at it in the grand scheme of things, I find I actually like them a little more looking back. For example, I thought Dipper being in love with Wendy was kind of pointless, but now that I look back and see what it was doing, talking about growing up and awkward crushes and stuff, I actually kind of really like it. Sometimes I thought the lessons they learned were a little much, but I also realized this was supposed to be a summer where they learn a lot, and again, they grow up, they learn stuff, so this does actually make a whole lot of sense. It's just great. It reminds you of familiar shows you grew up with, but it also gives you new twists and turns that you can be really excited for. And at the heart of it are these great characters with great humor and great charm. It's unlikely we're gonna get anything as unique as Gravity Falls, but in my opinion, that's not such a bad thing. It's one of a kind, and it should stay that way. Check out one weird, fantastic summer you'll never forget. AntMan Wasp is a screwball comedy in a Marvel superhero movie's clothing. And I mean that in the most complimentary way. Everything about the setup of this film feels like a farce, like something out of What's Up Doc or Fawlty Towers or one of those great comedies. It just also happens to have a lot of ass kicking and people in superhero costumes that can shrink really, really small. Actually, the more I think about it, how could this not be a screwball comedy? Coming out after Avengers Infinity War, but taking place just a little before those events, it's the perfect palate cleanser after something so gigantic and serious. But that's not to say it doesn't have a few serious moments and definitely some gigantic moments as well. Ant-Man, played again by Paul Rudd, is under house arrest after the events of Captain America: Civil War. This movie sets its tone perfectly, as one of the first big major action sequences is just playing with his daughter in this giant cardboard maze and this cardboard slide that really looks freaking cool. I want this thing! But it looks like Wasp and her father need him again to find the original Wasp, played by Michelle Pfeiffer. It looks like she shrank so small she went into a different dimension, time zone thingy in comic books, and only the three of them combined can figure out how to get her back. While that's going on, another thief who can go through walls named Ghost is trying to find a way to cure her condition because it's not actually the suit that makes her go through walls, it's the suit that keeps her more solid. That's actually a really good twist on that idea. While that's going on, there's heists, breaking into places, car chases, backstabbing, mistaken identities, and all sorts of various things that I guess you would find in a superhero movie now, but back then it used to be for a screwball comedy. And you know what? They go together really well. What I really like about this movie, on top of, again, the brilliant ingenuity and them getting small and getting big and having the strength and just doing everything you can with this idea, is that when the movie needs to be serious, it still works out okay, while also being a little funny too. I think the best example is there's a scene where the personality of Michelle Pfeiffer goes inside Paul Rudd, and he talks as Pfeiffer, like he's talking to his daughter and doing a great impression of her, and it's both really touching and sympathetic, but it's also pretty funny. You're kind of giggling at this guy who's touching the face of this woman who he's romantically interested in, but he's totally talking to her like her mother. There's quite a few scenes like that which work both dramatically and comedically. The climax is 100% screwball, with all these different people wanting different things, and one character has it, and the device flies into someone else's hands, and then they have to run away, and somebody else has to take another road, and add on top of that people getting bigger, smaller, super big, super small. It's just a blast. When I think of a comic book series that's just fun, it works. You're with the characters, you want to see them get all the way through, but it never goes quite too serious or overly dramatic, I think of the Ant-Man movies. I just feel like I'm reading a really charming comic book. Like, you know, one of the funnier issues where they have silly one-liners and people goof up, and yeah, you can get to the serious ones later, but for now, let's just have a few laughs. We can take it seriously in all the other issues, but let's just show them having fun in this one. It's like when I read the X-Men comics, I found myself really enjoying the ones where they were just kind of chillin' and having some downtime. They felt more real, they felt more three-dimensional. So yeah, it's not one of the great comic book films or anything, but it's just a ton of fun and really takes advantage of the ideas that they have. Granted, I never read Ant-Man, so I have no idea if this is really faithful, or maybe it was a more serious comic, I'm not sure. But as a movie series, if you're looking for a good time, this packs a big punch in a small package. Well, what can be said about the remake of The Lion King that hasn't been said already? Maybe the same thing that can be said about most of the other remakes, but people saw in this one a lot more for some reason? Okay, I guess we can talk about that. Why did so many people suddenly notice in this one the pointlessness, the lack of expression, the absolute empty void of Disney remakes in this one as opposed to the others? Well, look at it! It's like watching a slightly off National Geographic episode, except I know it's gonna sound weird, but there's even less expression. How is that possible? This is a work of fiction, it's animation, it's designed to be that way so you can give them more expression. Yet you can just watch an episode of National Geographic and be like, wow, that lion really has a lot going on in its head, and here, nothing, absolutely nothing. Even when they tell you what they're feeling, it's like they're feeling nothing. The story, do I even need to tell you? It's literally the exact same thing. If you've seen The Lion King, you've seen The Lion King. Or Kimba for that matter, but everybody's made that joke, including me. The young lion prince Simba is born at the top of the circle of life. Everybody is happy about this except his uncle Scar. He does everything he can with the help of the hyenas to kill little Simba and his father Mufasa. Voiced again by James Earl Jones, only this time very clearly needing a nap. Or questioning why the hell he has to say these lines again when he got it right so well the first time. Did he do it wrong? I guess he'll try it another way. Oh, that wasn't better. Oh well, print. I'll try not to give away too much of the story, you know, inside out, but through a series of unfortunate events, Simba is banished, leaving the throne and coming across two outcasts, Timon and Pumbaa, who I will admit are the only good things about this movie. They are legitimately funny, where I didn't really find the original that funny, and yeah, they got a laugh. I'll give them credit, they got a laugh. But Simba's girlfriend Nala, who's given a much bigger role of seeing her escape and given half a song over music that was honestly better in the original, again, girl power I guess, runs away and tells him that Scar has ruined everything, and of course, only he can take the throne. Will he defeat Scar? And did you see the first movie? Then you already know. You already know. It is literally a shot-for-shot remake. It's like the Gus Van Sant Psycho remake. Remember how great that did? Of course you didn't. Nobody remembers it. Like, nobody's going to remember this. So, okay, you've heard me go on and on about why I don't think this is a good movie, but why did people finally wake up to it? Why are they saying, hey, something feels wrong here, where something like Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin and all these others didn't? Well, for one, those other movies, for all their faults, did actually have people in it. It wasn't animated. That is to say, I love animated films. Clearly, I like the original animated movies compared to all these live-action remakes. But if you're gonna remake it and do something different and have it be live-action, have it actually be live-action. This is just another form of animation, trying to match animation. At least with live action, is trying to match animation, but it's real people. So that's a little different at least. Not much, but it's a little different. This is literally the exact same thing, shot for shot, minus the freshness and the emotion. Yeah, in a huge miscalculation, these things look so much like real animals that they don't have any expression. So you feel nothing from them when they talk. They just have these blank stares. And like I said, if you watch National Geographic, there is more expression to these animals. But something about the way they do this just doesn't feel right. Sometimes they look legitimately convincing, like Jungle Book convincing. I'm like, wow, that's actually really impressive. But half the time they just kind of look weird and they move odd, and it's just the right amount of off. You're always aware you're looking at something that's CG, even though it's trying so hard to convince you it's real animals. But it's talking animals with no expression, so it's just not gonna work. This is also the Disney remake that easily has the least amount of changes in it. I know I say that about every single Disney remake because, well, they just keep adding less and less. What a weird contradiction. They keep adding less and less, but this one did the most. People literally make YouTube videos showing side by side the exact same shots. Hell, the marketing did that. Like, look, we're not coming up with anything fresh or new. Isn't that great? And people finally said that's enough. I think that's the big irony to all this. I'm actually not against live-action Disney remakes, as long as they're done with films that can be improved on or can be given a different point of view or angle. Do something like Black Cauldron or Atlantis, something that can be improved on, has a good concept, but can be made even better. Hell, maybe even better in live action. You can really have fun with this. But as of now, the more I talk to people, the more they say, yeah, something just didn't feel right about Lion King. It felt empty, it felt shallow, it felt like a betrayal of one of the biggest stories a lot of people grew up with. And that is because it is the one where they tried the least, even though in some ways they tried the hardest. I mean, look at that technology, it's really impressive. I mean, just look at these landscapes. This is supposed to be Africa, gorgeous, beautiful Africa, and it just looks as lifeless as, well, all the characters in it. In the original, the colors and the scenery just leaped off the screen. It was just such a spectacle to behold. The stampede scene is still one of the most heart-pounding scenes in Disney history, and it's because it is animation and it is hand-drawn and you can get it as close as you want. You can make it as exaggerated and big as you would like. Here, it doesn't look like there's even that many. There's plenty of space to run between them. If anyone fell in there, I can see them getting hurt, but I don't necessarily see them getting killed. It's something that's just not that threatening looking. All the major moments that were so big and impactful in the original are so dead and empty. So yeah, I've talked about this movie a lot, and I know you've heard about it a lot, and chances are you saw it and you probably agree. I haven't really seen that many people that like this one. But if you are, thumbs up. I can't act like I get it, but you know, go ahead and enjoy it. But I would say maybe check out the original again. Because if this is the one you got a major emotional reaction to, how did Timon put it?
Have you got your lions crossed?
Paint your upper lip and sharpen your breast, it's Kim Possible, the animated teen spy from the early 2000s. So I'll admit I didn't really grow up with this show when it came out. I was just out of high school, going into college, and yeah, cartoons were kinda seen as kid stuff then. How naive I was. But I was aware of what Kim Possible was. Every once in a while I'd see it on TV, get a little laugh, and that's about all I thought about it. But then, for one of the other Disneycembers, I looked over the 2 Kim Possible movies and found them, well, incredibly funny. And with all the people asking me to review the live-action Kim Possible movie that premiered on the Disney Channel, spoiler, it's bad! I decided, much like when I reviewed Last Airbender, that it made sense to watch it only after I watched the entire series. So I got all the DVDs, downloaded all the episodes, and yeah, I found this to be a very charming, clever, funny show. One of the greats? I don't know if I'd go that far, but I don't even know if the show would go that far. It's not really something that's trying to challenge you or be poignant, it's just a good, funny show. I'd say unlike Gravity Falls, where it feels more like they're writing for the adults than they are for the kids, this one it feels like they're definitely writing for the kids first, but the adults still play a big part. Like they're not half-assing it, they want to give something that, yeah, is trying to be cool with the kids, but adults can watch and get a few chuckles here and there. The show, about a high schooler named Kim and her sidekick Ron Stoppable, mostly focuses on her missions against a rogues gallery of hilarious villains, while also trying to do typical high school teen stuff, study for tests, make the cheerleading squad, and so forth. Like many shows, the first season can be a little bumpy, as you can tell they're still trying to find their footing. It's not bad, but it definitely seems like the season most geared towards kids. The second season is where it starts to pick up, and a lot more of the adult jokes start to hit. While most of the villains are pretty funny, I do find the most hilarious ones are the ones that are a duo. I think because they can banter off each other more. It's like Laurel without Hardy, Pinky without Brain, Abbott without Costello. Whenever villains are teamed up, it seems the best. The talks between Senior 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 and Senior Senior Junior, god, those names alone are great, are always super funny, especially with great voice talents like Ricardo Montalban, and of course easily the show's favorite villains, Draken and Shigo, done brilliantly by John DiMaggio and Nicole Sullivan. I will admit maybe they're villain of the week a little too much in the show, but at the same time, yeah, they did make me laugh the most, so I guess it's not surprising. As I've said before, there's 1 or 2 weaknesses to the show, and one of them is a little bit of Ron Stoppable's voice. It's just a little too loud and a little too squeaky, but it always works out okay because the writing for him is so great and his delivery is always so great, at least in terms of timing. Kim also, as I've said before, can be a little bit of a blank slate, but I also understand it. She's supposed to be the hero, the cool kid, the one everybody wants to be. But I will say this, after seeing the live-action Kim Possible movie, I suddenly have a lot more respect for her character. She at least had basic comedy down. When she got angry, she would say something angry. When she wanted to say something really witty and funny, it would be really witty and funny. It just wasn't as funny as the villains, but again, that's kinda to be expected. The funniest characters are the ones that things always go wrong for, and it's a kid's superhero show, so of course things are always gonna go wrong for the villains. Unless they want to make her really egocentric like Darkwing Duck or something, but I don't think that's the route they want to go. Still, there's a lot of really good running jokes with her, like somebody always owes her a favor because she saved them in blank. They always thank her for some sort of weird situation that they got in, and she always says it's no big and brings up some sort of weird resolution that she solved it with. Jokes like that and a teacher played by Patrick Warburton who somehow is the only teacher in the entire school are good running jokes and very cleverly done. Also, it just gives an excuse for them to keep showing off their great comedic talents. There's so many good episodes to count, but my favorites off the top of my head, I really like the Christmas one, big shock, because it's 2 characters you don't normally see together, Ron and Draken, who both have to bond together in order to survive, and it turns out the one thing they have in common is they both love the same terrible Christmas special. As someone who adores terrible Christmas specials myself, I can really relate to this. I love the episode where a poodle gets really big, attacking Area 51, and somehow Area 51 always has a backup plan for it. They even have code names for it. The episode where Draken and Shigo get an underwater layer is great. I also really like the ones that go into Shigo's backstory, even though they don't really do it like traditional shows do. In, say, Batman or Avatar, they would really go into the character's background and give them like this big arc and you would learn all about them, but it kind of gives you the story and then stops there. In a way that kind of leaves you wanting more. There's another episode where Shigo turns good and actually becomes Kim's friend. Again, you could have really taken time to go serious with this, but it still keeps it mostly to the jokes and the action to the point where when she says, "There's something I want to tell you," but then gets zapped back into being evil, there is kind of this tragedy there, but it doesn't feel like it's beating you over the head. In most shows, I'd say it's a missed opportunity, but because the writing and the acting is just so funny, it doesn't feel that way. It always feels like it gives you just the right amount, never going too dramatic with it. The same thing can be said for Ron and Kim's relationship. It almost doesn't even seem like anything at the start, and then as it starts to grow, it never quite goes too serious. It seems like the comedy and the charm of the character is always the first priority. And what I like is when they do become a couple, they're actually a really sweet couple. The first episode after they hook up, it's looking like, oh, they're gonna do the thing where they bicker all the time and fight, but no, it's really just that one episode, and after that, they actually work really well together. They're cute. I really like seeing them together. So yeah, if you're a kid, I feel like you're definitely gonna like this show. It doesn't matter if you're a boy or a girl, like things more social or like things more action-oriented. It's got a little something for everyone. If you're an adult, I'd say keep in mind it is still a kid show first, but it is a kid show with a lot of laughs for adults and a lot of charm to its characters. I enjoyed watching it. I'm really glad it took the time to sit down, watch them all the way through, and catch up on a cool series that a lot of people grew up with. Give it a watch and see what all the buzz was about. The only knowledge I had of Captain Marvel before I saw the movie was there's this VR game I would play where she was by far the best character. I always hear she's the character that Rogue steals the powers from, but I don't know if that's the same one or not. I'm going more by bare bone characteristics, what we know about her. And from the VR game, it looks like she's confident, funny, a little cocky, and a jet pilot that knows how to kick ass with her superpowers. Boy, I wish that's what I got here. That is to say, I'm sure that's what this movie wanted to be, but what we finally got is really, what are the words I'm looking for? Pandering and boring. A lot of people try to compare this to Wonder Woman, which in my opinion is apples and oranges, but I guess I get it. It's the first big female superhero in this lineup. DC has Wonder Woman, Marvel has Captain Marvel, and man, they couldn't be more opposite, because Wonder Woman was awesome, and this is not. The story is boring Captain Marvel is being trained by boring Jude Law on this boring alien planet that looks like every other boring alien planet, and they have to stop this evil boring alien race, which leads her to boring old Earth where boring young Samuel L. Jackson is. Give credit that a lot of the movie is not her trying to convince him that she's an alien, he picks up on it pretty quick. But take away that credit when you find the whole movie is going to be told out of order. Why? Because this is every Marvel movie you've seen with nothing new added, so this will hopefully make it new. It doesn't. It makes it even blander. I don't know why people think if you just move things around suddenly it'll be deeper. You have to actually tell the story in an interesting way and deliver the information in an interesting way, and that's not what this does, because we've seen these movies! We've seen these Marvel movies where they go through the exact same things. They just move it around, and that doesn't really change much. At the center of this film's problems is Brie Larson, who sadly does not come across as the superhero type at all. I say sadly because in a couple scenes she can be kind of charming. I like when she first lands on Earth and she kind of comedically tries to figure out where she is talking to people, and those scenes work okay. But when she has to act tough or in charge or emotional or anything like that, it just doesn't work. It's actually almost laughable.
He lied to me. Your people are terrorists. They kill innocents. I don't even know who I am.
At first I thought maybe Brie Larson was never that good, but I went back and I watched Room again and I saw Kong Skull Island for the first time, and yeah, not only could she take a really well-written role and make it even more interesting, but she could take a very relative run-of-the-mill role and actually make it very charming. I like her in both these movies, so maybe it's just the direction, which wouldn't surprise me. There's a subplot in this movie I'm really getting tired about, with her powers being tied to her emotions. Yeah, haven't heard that yet, have you? Tell me more, Tetsuo, Elsa, Fire Princess, wherever else you want to throw in that category. Honestly, it wouldn't even be that bad if there was some emotion to focus on. They keep saying you have to keep your anger under control, you can't emote that much, and she already isn't. Like they say, she can only use her powers when she's really angry, and every time she uses them, she doesn't seem that angry. She doesn't even seem interested half the time. When we finally get to, I guess, the emotional climax of the film, it shows all these scenes of her falling down and then getting up, like, yeah, she never gave up, that was the moral of the story? It was? This ties in less to the movie and more feels like a Disney commercial on girl empowerment. Can't you see them saying, I am a princess, I am strong, I am brave, while all this is going on?
I
am a princess. Sometimes I am brave even when I am scared. I believe in loyalty and trust.
The only thing that's kinda new, and I won't go too much into detail about, is these aliens. Without giving away too much, we find out there is kind of a secret to them, and yeah, I don't really see that much in movies about these kind of aliens, so I like that. But aside from that, you can predict every character arc, every one-liner, every scene where they're supposed to be surprising you, but they don't really, because we've seen it a million times in other Marvel movies. Is it the absolute worst? No, and honestly, I know a lot of people who enjoy this, and if you do, great. I can't really think of anything god-awful in it that's gonna mess anyone up by watching it. But for me, it just felt boring, stale, and awkward. A shame, because this looks like a really cool superhero. When she puts that little helmet on and has the mohawk, it's like, hell yeah, I want to see what's up with this character. But if this is really the most that can be explored with her, then I say the altered logo at the beginning is the most feels you're gonna get out of it. WreckIt Ralph 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet. Isn't that just what you wanted from a WreckIt Ralph sequel? So many video game characters introduced, so many more teased, and then you're not giving them, they just kind of go somewhere else? Like if they made a sequel to Roger Rabbit, you don't see any more new cartoon characters, you just see Roger become a music star? I don't know. You know what, who cares? It's a different direction, and good for them. They're not gonna just repeat the exact same thing over and over, they're gonna actually go somewhere different. Okay, fair enough. What wild ideas do we have? Well, it looks like Vanellope's game Sugar Rush is about to be turned off because the wheel is broken. Fix-It Felix and his new sergeant wife offer to look after the kids that were left behind in Sugar Rush, and boy, this is gonna be so funny, we're not gonna show any of it. Not even sure why it's introduced into the story. But whatever, it's discovered that a new wheel is on eBay and Ralph and Vanellope can go through the internet to purchase it, but in doing so they overbid with money that they discover they don't have. So it's their job to search the internet to find a way to make money, and they do so almost disgustingly easy. Ralph becomes a YouTube star, and Vanellope discovers that she actually likes this different game and doesn't really like Sugar Rush anymore. So, okay, I guess that motivation's kinda down the toilet, so now what's the motivation? Well, Ralph doesn't like that she wants to leave her old home to find this new home, so he goes to the dark web, tries to sabotage her plans, but in doing so, he kind of spreads the virus of himself and starts taking over a whole bunch of the internet, and there's a bunch of hymns running around, and yeah, while that image of all of them together will haunt my nightmares, it kind of seems out of nowhere. And not fully fleshing out a good idea because it's only kind of starting with it halfway through. In fact, the first film kind of seems pointless. Vanellope's whole thing is that she wants to belong, she's an outcast, and she wants to be a part of the group in this game. Now she just doesn't want to anymore, she's sick of it. I mean, okay, I like the idea of a Disney movie talking about the importance of moving on, it's just that every Disney movie now is about the importance of moving on, even if it kind of goes against what the previous film was about. You know what the previous film WreckIt Ralph was about? Coping. Life's not how you like it, you know what? Deal. If you can't force change around you, adapt to the good things that you admire. And he finds something to admire, he finds importance. Now it's like he's learning it all over again, but in the middle of the movie. And the idea of showing Ralph's insecurities build on the internet is a smart idea, but it doesn't even begin to touch the surface of what could be talked about in an internet movie, because it's a Disney internet movie. If you're gonna make fun of the internet, you can't be a Disney brand. A PG isn't gonna do it. You need to go PG-13, maybe even an R. When Ralph looks at the YouTube comments, oh yeah, that's totally what they would say. Oh yeah, this is the most amount of jokes we could do with this. Even the internet world they create looks like every internet you've seen in tons of other shows and movies. Futurama, the friggin' Emoji Movie. There's nothing new to it, and it's not even really satirizing that much. They just sort of say Twitter exists and YouTube exists. Okay, well what jokes are you gonna do with it? Not much, because you're Disney. The best jokes in the movie, weirdly enough, are when Disney is whoring itself out. Vanellope finds the Oh My Disney website, and while that's not really funny, she does get wrapped up with the Disney princesses, which is all the original voice cast. The jokes here are surprisingly pretty solid. poking fun of their cliches like how they always have to look at water to be inspired, and actually I never thought about that, I guess they do. But also poking fun of cliches that other people have said they partake in, but they don't always, and they're finally getting a little tired of it. I give credit that Disney gave a little pushback on that. But not only were a lot of these scenes already shown in the trailer almost to an obnoxious degree, but they have little to do with the story. They give her a little bit of advice and then she's off to figure out her own thing, but we're there for a little bit of time. And on top of it all, it's just not that funny. It's kind of like modern day Simpson writing. They just kind of say something exists, and because The Simpsons says it exists, that's somehow supposed to make it humorous. It's the same thing here. They acknowledge these internet memes exist. Okay, cool, but how does it tie into anything? Where's the satire? What are you making fun of? You just showed Overwatch exists. Okay, what do you have to say about it? How does it connect to anything else? It doesn't. Just showing a clip of it is supposed to get a laugh. That's why the princess scenes work, because they're at least making fun of what everybody knows about them instead of just showing them and going away. The only other scene I can think kinda getting a laugh is Vanellope singing a song about how she wants to be in this wonderful place like the Disney princesses usually do, but the place is kind of an awful, terrible, violent place. Again, that wasn't too bad, but everything else feels like it's a seed of an idea that's never given any water. And it's not surprising why. WreckIt Ralph was video games, mostly retro video games. This is the internet, and yeah, while there is kind of a connection, it's not a strong enough connection that Disney can really satirize it. Futurama can satirize it because it's made for adults. Disney, if they still want to keep that super friendly family brand, can't. And a part of me gives them credit for holding on to that brand. There's a lot of wholesomeness to it, there's a lot of value to it, and they work within it very well. But this is not one of those examples. This is where the brand actually gets in the way of the humor. Which wouldn't be too bad if there was a more fleshed out story and characters, but there really aren't. At least in my opinion. But I don't know, a lot of critics seem to love it. I tried watching it again, and I just couldn't get it. I didn't see good humor, I didn't see good commentary, I didn't see good characters, I didn't see a good story. It just wasn't good. But maybe there's people out there that do, maybe there's kids out there that do, maybe this is somehow a way that kids can connect with their own insecurities on the internet and see how it can get out of control, and yeah, if that does it for them, great, it's a good lesson to learn, but for me, I don't think it's fully taken advantage of. It was a big hit at the box office, it was a big hit with critics, but it definitely wasn't a big hit with me. When I first saw Gargoyles in 1994, my first initial thought was, oh, this is Disney trying to do Batman. A lot more serious, darker, action-oriented shows for kids were popping up everywhere, and this was Disney's attempt to cash in on that. It had more shadows, harsher plots, more serious voice acting, and even though I was getting to the age where I wasn't really watching these kind of cartoons anymore, I do kind of remember sneaking it in between school. You know, like when you tell your friends, oh yeah, who watches Gargoyles, but you kind of secretly knew I did. I watch Gargoyles. As I've gotten older and watched it again, I realized not only does it really stand to the test of time, but it's definitely not just a Batman ripoff. It's not even close. It really is its own unique thing. And the amount of planning that must have gone into this when you see how many elements in the story tie in and come back later, it really is a damn impressive show. In the age of swords and sorcery, gargoyles rule the night, because that's all they can rule. When the sun comes up, they turn to stone, but when the sun goes down, they break out of their statues and go through the night. This idea and visual alone is amazing. The humans don't much care for the gargoyles as they see them as, well, monsters, despite them most of the time protecting the humans. But a sudden betrayal takes place and most of the gargoyles are wiped out. That is, for a select few. A sorcerer confuses the gargoyle, saving them for attacking them, and he turns them into stone during the night. And the only way to reverse the spell is to take them and the castle they swore to protect above the clouds, which, in that time period, seems pretty unlikely. So the leader of this clan, Goliath, played by Keith David, has the sorcerer turn him to stone too so he can be with his clan. Years later though, an eccentric billionaire named Xanatos, played by Jonathan Frakes, does indeed lift the castle and the gargoyles above the clouds in this incredible architectural design. I mean, good God, look at that. Bringing them back to life. A detective named Elisa Mazza stumbles across them, forms a strong friendship, and of course she has to show them how the modern world works. while also finding out their supposed friends in Xanatos, and Goliath's resurrected lost love, Demona, played by Marina Sirtis, are not quite what they expect them to be. To go into this series' continuing stories is a mouthful. It just goes everywhere, and it does it amazingly. This is one of those shows where some can be episodic, but there's also kind of this long continuing story that takes place both in the past, the modern day, and sometimes even in the future. Where Disney does a lot of these connecting stories all the time now with Gravity Falls and DuckTales and so forth, back then, this was new territory for them. It's almost like it combined the dark gothicness of Batman with the continuing kind of soap opera stories of X-Men, but then adding this new element of mythology. Wizards, armies, kings, queens, princesses, all tying into an ancient lore that sounds really complicated, but the show is very good at holding your hand and walking you through it. There's so many twists and turns about characters' different identities, especially over the hundreds, even thousands of years they've been alive. It's one of those series that starts off good and only gets better and better the more you watch it. The animation, 9 out of 10, is really, really good. As is with a lot of shows back then, it wasn't always consistent though. They had to go to different animation companies, sometimes I'm sure notes got lost in the mix, and it can come across a little awkward. But like I said, that's a rarity. Usually it's done superbly well with these incredible shadows and great angles, and to complement it all, an amazing voice cast. These actors are amazing. Not only are their voices just so distinct, so booming, so powerful, but their acting is just phenomenal. I remember we used to joke how many Star Trek cast members are on this show. There's surprisingly a lot, but honestly, they're so good, you kinda don't care anymore. It doesn't become distracting. The Star Trek actors are good actors. There's a reason the shows they were on had so many seasons, because they were so charming and we like watching them and we like hearing them here. Like I said, the show only gets better and better the further it goes, for the most part. There's a lot of negative talk about Season 3, as apparently they changed up a lot, they were suddenly on a different network, and yeah, while it's clearly not as good as the other seasons, it's still not that bad, in my opinion. There's an emphasis this time on the prejudice against the gargoyles, which was really more of a first couple episodes thing, you know, because they just kept in secret the rest of the time. But now, they're outed, and there's this very obvious clan, if you will, that's hunting them down, and yeah, I wonder what this is representing. There's also kind of weird storylines, like Broadway suddenly becomes a big movie star, and an alternate reality where Goliath is married to Elisa and he's human, and being a lot more episodic rather than a continuing story, which a lot of fans didn't like. But honestly, there's still some really solid nuggets of good in this too. Like, I really enjoyed the episode where Demona is bonding with her daughter and she kinda doesn't know, can she trust her or can she? Despite these what if the main character was normal plot lines we've seen a million times in a million other shows, it's still done okay here. Even though it goes a little goofy and a little different, there's still this idea that they want to keep it kinda sad and melancholy, and to me that's still a big focus of the show. As long as they don't lose that and we like the characters enough, I still think it's alright. But yeah, the real focus is those 2 first seasons, and when I say 2 seasons, I don't mean like 12 or 13 episodes, I mean combined they're like 65 episodes, so there's a lot of them. It's practically 3 seasons. It's engaging, imaginative, dramatic, dark, brooding, action-packed, and even though it came out a long time ago, it's definitely new material for Disney that we would love to see them return to. I mean, it's gotta be better than what they're returning to now. It's the sequel to one of Disney's biggest phenomenons in years, Frozen 2. It's been over 6 years since the first film graced the big screen, and man did it just explode. So naturally there must be a lot of pressure to make its sequel even bigger and better and brighter and more songs and more complications and more character, and yeah, you can definitely feel that pressure in this movie because boy, talk about trying to do too much and achieving too little. People's reaction to this movie seems to be pretty mixed, with kids liking it fine and some adults liking it fine, but I think everyone agrees it's not the first one. The problems you can pick out actually very early on. as Elsa and Anna's non-Maurice LaMarche father talks about an old enchanted forest, and they had tribes that believed in water, wind, earth, and fire, and their kingdom discovered them, and they built a dam for them, but then something went wrong, and there was this big fight, and then this curse was laid, and this giant wall of smoke went up, and everybody was trapped there, and there's a lullaby they used to sing, and there might be a connection to Elsa, and this is all in the first few minutes. At first I thought, well, the first film was pretty top-heavy too, they threw a lot of information very early on, but then it slowed down and allowed character and story to really take place. But nope, it stays this pace throughout the entire film, and I think the reason for that is they had a really cool idea with smart elements, but there's kind of all these boxes they have to check off because it's Frozen 2 and they've had a bunch of shorts and they were mostly successes and we gotta keep this merchandise train going. So you have the story where Elsa wants to go and find the enchanted forest because this voice is calling out to her and it's weird and it's haunting and she doesn't know what it means, so she's gonna go and travel there. She discovers she's the only one that can open the fog and go inside. But why? She also discovers that water has memory and she can use this power to look into the past and see kind of these frozen statues. There's different monsters and creatures that all take on the different elements and they all seemingly try to lead her to a certain place, a place that may have a tie-in to her mother. Well, yeah, okay, that's all really interesting. And on top of all that, we're gonna find out what happened in the past and how everything crumbled and how this curse was put on it and okay, cool, I'm sold. This sounds like a really neat idea. But that's just Elsa. We also have to have Anna in there. You see, she wants to come with, and there's honestly not much to do except be supportive, and yeah, then at the end, suddenly there's this big decision made about her like it was built up, but it really wasn't. And we also need Kristoff, who wants to propose to Anna, and that's it. Yeah, that's his entire character, is Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story 4 all over again. We so don't know what to do with him, we give him an 80s ballad in the middle of the movie, which completely doesn't tie into Frozen at all. Oh, and of course you have new characters like the tribe and the old guards who have been living there for years, and yeah, maybe we can get an idea of all the pain and suffering they've been going through, but not really, they're just kind of there and then vanish. Sometimes they give a little exposition, but that's it. Oh, and that goddamn comic relief Olaf. I stomached him okay in the first one, and even in the shorts, I kind of thought it was alright because it's for little kids, it's these little shorts, I get it. This is a sequel to one of the biggest Disney movies ever made, and he just comes in and pretty much holds the movie hostage whenever he wants. Anytime it's going somewhere interesting, he'll just come in and tell a ton of jokes. It never feels organic, it never feels like it belongs. Even when they come across the tribes and the guards and they finally see him after all these years, suddenly the camera's on him and he's talking about everything that happened in the first film in this little, what I can only describe as a bum review. He does a bum review. And on top of all of that, the climax, if you can even call it that, there's not really that much action or anything that happens at the end, tries to do this really big correction to make up for the sins of the past, which at first I thought was a little extreme, but then I realized fairy tales, you go extreme, that's the idea. But then they don't even do that. They completely renege on it at the last minute, taking away all responsibility. There is so much going on in this movie that doesn't connect together that it's just boring. It somehow feels really rushed and really meandering at the same time. All the stuff with Elsa seems pretty good, but it's rushed because they always have to make room for Olaf and Kristoff and Anna and everything else. I remember there's a moment where she freezes the air and all these statues are around her and they're like, "What's this?" And she says, "I don't know, frozen memories of the past?" Lucky freaking guess! Had this movie been given time just to be with her, maybe that could have been more of a mystery. Maybe she could have put it together. Maybe even just a few seconds more. But nope, she just immediately came to that conclusion. And that's how so much of the story feels, like there's either these big leaps in logic that nobody would figure out right away, or these incredibly obvious plot devices that everybody has figured out, but for some reason they haven't yet. And they're really gonna draw it out. The songs pretty much work the same way. Anything with Elsa is pretty good. Granted, they all sound like they're trying to recreate Let It Go 3 or 4 times, but I still like Let It Go, and even a good imitation done by the same people is still a good imitation. The other songs though, around Olaf and Kristoff and everything else, feels more like they were written for Frozen shorts, and that's what this movie feels like. A decent Frozen sequel trying to get off the ground, but these direct-to-DVD movies somehow getting in the way. I guess I'll say this, kids can watch it fine. I mean, I think they might be a little lost with the story, but they'll follow it enough. And yeah, Olaf is annoying to me, but the screening I went to, a lot of the kids were laughing, so I'm sure he'll entertain them. But if I had to guess, even if kids like it, they're going to rewatch the first one over and over and over, and this one only a few times. Honestly, once was enough for me. This isn't like an awful, terrible movie or anything like that. It's honestly a passable kids film, I suppose. Though again, probably overly complicated. But as a sequel to one of Disney's biggest hits that both enchanted children and adults, I just didn't think it worked. But who knows, at the time of me recording it, it's still pretty close to when it came out, so maybe people are seeing something really special about it. Maybe over the years, the more we watch it, we'll figure out it was actually better than the first one. But for me, now, this is a trip into the unknown I don't need to take. Avengers Endgame is the most epic, satisfying, groundbreaking, crowd-pleasing third act of a Marvel movie I've ever seen. The rest is long, drawn out, meandering, even repetitive at times, and feels more like a director's extended cut than a final picture, which there is a big difference. Remember the extended cut of Return of the King? It's neat, but as an extended cut, if you released this in theaters, it'd probably drive people insane. In fact, Return of the King is a pretty good analogy for this because I kind of feel like it's in reverse. Where in that movie, the majority of it is epic and awesome and the ending goes on too much. Here, the majority of it goes on too much, but it ends on such an incredible strong note. But the one thing both Return of the King and Avengers Endgame have in common is they've earned it. For many of these characters, this is the end of a 10-year journey, something that's never been done in film like this, at least definitely not on this scale. It's a rare thing, and most people know that going into it, so I think a little leeway is allowed. The story, oh wait, do I have to say the spoilers? Do I have to say spoilers just to talk about the basic story of this? Yeah, people went nuts if you even said the name of a character in this. It kind of got insane. But look, I'm not gonna give away who lives or who dies or anything that everybody couldn't figure out. For Christ's sake, another Spider-Man movie was being advertised when this was being advertised. I think most people know the people that disappear from the snap are coming back. Or do you think Disney and Marvel thought this was such a good marketing choice to leave them all dead? Just use your brains. Anyway, 5 years have passed since the infamous Thanos snap, and what's left of the Avengers, as well as what's left of the world, have had a difficult time adapting to it. People have lost friends, families, partners. It's really torn everybody apart. Some have found peace, like the Hulk finally managed to balance himself out, being both half human and half Hulk. Tony Stark had his own family and is actually a good husband and father. But everything changes when Ant-Man is suddenly released from the dimensional portal thingamajig that he got lost in his movie. And he says this device might be useful to go back in time and change things in a way that doesn't really change things, and oh god, it's that time travel shit they're gonna act like makes sense but totally doesn't. So okay, on the one hand, you kinda know time travel has to play a part in this. I mean, how can't it? And honestly, it kinda surprised me the way they did it. I mean, I thought it was gonna be this one way, it was something totally different. But it does lead to a lot of problems, which I guess any story involving time travel would. It's not that it doesn't make sense, it's that it acts like it makes sense. Like, no, this is how it works. Forget about what you see in movies, and it pretty much does what they do in movies. In fact, I was kind of hoping they were going to do like what they did in 12 Monkeys, where you can't really change the past. In fact, they were really building that up, and I thought, oh my god, this will be brilliant. Like, you have to go back and watch Avengers and these other movies and realize, oh, they were there doing all this stuff in the background where you couldn't see it. But nope, you can totally change the past because they change a lot and different timelines are born because of it. But this one timeline has to stay the same, so they have to go back and return these stones. But if so many things are already being changed, which you just said couldn't be changed, like characters going on to Disney Plus shows, how does any of this make sense? I guess when I heard time travel, I got really excited because I just sort of assumed this present that they have now maybe wouldn't exist and they have to alter it. And holy shit, what about Tony Stark and his family? I mean, would there be this big thing where he has to like give up the existence of his daughter in order to have this other timeline happen? Wow, that's one of the deepest questions that's ever been asked in a Marvel movie. This is really going to the next level. Oh, they're just saying no, that's not a thing. which I know isn't fair. I should stop imagining what I want a film to be and accept it for what it is, and yeah, you can say that, but when it's introducing so many ideas that aren't being taken advantage of, you kinda notice it a little more. For example, the Thanos they fight in this isn't the same Thanos, which again, I won't get into too many details, but it's not the one that did the snap, so it just doesn't feel as satisfying. There's other things that get under my skin too. For example, there's one character that dies in the middle of the movie, and most of the deaths I'm okay with, but this one I'm not. Everything around it feels empty and pointless. Everything about the character in terms of the involvement with other characters and stuff, they're kind of building up one thing and then just suddenly that character is gone and it just feels like nothing. To a point where in the next Spider-Man movie they reference it and I kind of had to remind myself it even happened. It left that little an impact. There's other scenes like where Tony Stark goes and meets his father in the past. Again, this is something I'd want to see in an extended scene, not really in the final product. As well as a scene where Thor sees his mother, and I guess it's supposed to be funny and emotional, but it just comes across as kind of awkward to me. So much of these movies are based around the characters' interactions, and I realize when half of them are gone, you're not getting as much of it, and it's just not as interesting. Maybe a scene with Thor and his mother might have been emotional, maybe a scene with Tony and his father might have been the same, but when you have to combine it with everything else, it just feels like way too much. Even when the action starts, it's all kind of action we've already seen. I mean, some of it's cool. There's a scene where two Captain Americas fight, that's kind of neat. But what are you really rooting for here? Oh, I hope they get that thing you know they're gonna get, or even if they don't, you know they're gonna get it somewhere else? Because the villain is not in a lot of the movie, and when he is, it's kind of a different one, you don't really get that conflict as much. When Black Panther and Killmonger are fighting, you feel that buildup. When Spider-Man and the Vulture are talking, you feel that buildup. When Captain America's fighting Captain America, cool. When Hawkeye's battling these criminals we saw for a few seconds, neat. And again, when we do finally see the main bad guy, a lot of it's just telling him what we already know. Even the Avengers that are there are a little different. Thor's a bum now, and Hulk is kind of a geek, and everything just feels a little off, which you could argue is the point. Like something is missing, and they're gonna go get it back, and fair enough, but I also realize it was almost a year between Infinity War and this. Everybody has had a lot of time to really accept, holy smokes, these characters vanished. I mean, we know they'll come back, but man, what a gut-wrenching moment. We've had a year to let this sink in, and now we have like an hour and a half of trying to tell you, yeah, that was a real bad thing that happened. We know! We have a year to think about it! But, two big things. One, not everyone's gonna see it this way. Years down the line, people are gonna rent these and watch them back to back, and yeah, it's gonna make more sense to see the characters dealing with these people being gone, so I get that. Two, not only does it build up to an amazing third act that I wouldn't change a thing about, I mean, it's absolutely perfect, but this is a very tricky story to tell. It's hard to tell in a way that's interesting, it's hard to tell in a way that makes sense, it's just a difficult movie to do that's gonna wrap up so many characters and get other characters their stories and their plot lines going, and yeah, I get it. It's a rough movie to pull off. So that's why I still say it's good. I mean, when am I gonna get that angry about that? Spent too much time on character? I mean, how often do I get to say that? A lot of people like the extended cuts of movies, and so do I for that matter, but you can definitely tell when it feels like an extended cut, and that's what this feels like. So yeah, it's not perfect, and I feel like people that watch it more and more are kind of seeing stuff that doesn't always connect together, but I wouldn't dare say don't go see it. I mean, like I said, the third act alone is absolute perfection. I never thought I would see something like this on the big screen. So many Marvel characters that I grew up reading and seeing on TV, and they're all there. Okay, it's not a perfect world, but they're mostly there. I remember when it was a big deal that Superman and Matrix and Pirates were going to shoot 2 movies back to back. Like, wow, that so rarely happens. And here, you have a whole enterprise of movies that's lasted over 10 years, and they all have to connect in one way or another, and that's insane. And they're so successful, and they're so entertaining, and even the bad ones aren't that bad. I mean, look at their worst. Thor the Dark World, Iron Man 2, Captain Marvel. We've had Batman and Robin, Superman 4, and Green Lantern. For their worst to be only that bad, that's impressive. Everything about this franchise was and still is impressive. We've never had something like this in cinema, and I don't know if we ever will again, at least not to this size. We'll still have new, big, and inspiring things, and yeah, at some point I'm sure this whole Marvel franchise movie, cinematic universe thing will fade out. But at the very least we know there was a time when a lot of energy, a lot of thought, a lot of careful planning, and a lot of love went into giving fans what they always wanted to see on the big screen. In that respect, Endgame really is a perfect wrap-up for a lot of these characters. Because yeah, not everything works and I have some disagreements like any fan does, but the parts that are massive, fun, smart, entertaining, and just mind-blowing to see on the big screen makes it more than worth it.
Assemble.
Glad to know shitty remakes also extend to Disney Plus now. Lady and the Tramp is the latest Disney live-action update that nobody asked for. Truth be told, I never really got that much into the original. I mean, I watched it a lot as a kid and enjoyed it, but outside of the animation, which is weirdly gorgeous, you kind of think they put more like the Aristocats animation to a story like this, but man, this has the elegance of like Cinderella for some reason. It always takes one of these crappy live-action reboots to make me realize there was actually more to it than I probably originally thought. The story is exactly the same. There's a little dog named Lady, and she comes across this stray who is called the Tramp. Their owners are having a baby, which confuses her, and it's all about her adapting and seeing this different lifestyle of living with a baby, but then going away from that lifestyle and living with the Tramp on the street, and all the different points of views. Only this time around, there's a big difference. Nothing is likable. Take the animation for example. At first, I wasn't really sure what to think of it because, yeah, they really do move like dogs, and it's not quite like cats and dogs where they're clearly just filming dogs that have no direction, they just make the mouths move. Here, they clearly have real dogs, but at times they switch them out with CG, and yeah, I'll admit it is kinda hard to tell which one's the CG dog, which one's the real dog, as they keep the movements pretty similar. At first I thought that was kind of clever, but the more I watched it and during the emotional moments they're trying to talk and their heads are still kind of jerking around and they're looking everywhere, and yeah, it's like a dog, but it gets in the way of the heavier moments that are supposed to be going on. Take this scene for example, where we see the Tramp abandoned. It's a sad scene. The owner throws a bone and then gets back in the car and drives off, but look at him. He licks his mouth before he gives this sad look, and all I'm thinking to myself is, would an emotional, heartbroken dog do that? I'm sure just the real dog did that, and they're like, oh, keep it in because it's like a real dog, but it's kind of like the live-action Lion King. They're going for more realism of the animal than realism of the character, and there is a balance, and they're not striking it right. By far the biggest issue though is that everything that happens in this movie seems to have no weight. Most of the scenes done in the movie are done like in the last movie, usually in the same order. There's a little change here or there, but it's pretty much the same thing. But in the original, when something was said, a character really had to take it in. When they're told that Trusty can't smell, it's like a big deal. What? No, they gasp, they're shocked, and they're like, don't tell him, it would break his heart, and they have these sad faces. It's really a big thing. Here, they just say he can't smell and they go about their day. When the baby's being born, you see this big shift in the adults and how they treat Lady and how Lady reacts to them, and she's not sure why, and again, it really affects her. Here, she's just kind of curious, they tell her what's going on, and that's about it. It feels more like a pitch meeting than an actual movie. Somebody just saying, and then this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. But there's little to no reaction what's going on. They treat it more like a lame rom-com. And yeah, it's weird that these live-action remakes make me realize it, but Lady and the Tramp was more than just a lame rom-com. There was this elegance to it. There was this beauty, there was this sophistication, there was this respect for the characters and the music and the scenes. I guess I should talk a little about the casting in this movie. As you probably pick up really quickly, most of the people in this are people of color. Top of my head, I can remember seeing one white guy in the early 20th century. When I saw the trailer, I thought this seemed a little forced and was going to be distracting, but then the more I thought about it, I didn't really mind when there's different ethnicities in fairy tales or Princess and the Frog, where people are treated very different than what they're displaying. I guess I was a little surprised at how non-distracting it was. I don't know, it almost felt like a parallel universe where just racial differences just wasn't a big deal. And yeah, it's a movie with talking dogs. I'm not going to be that focused on the realism of it. Of course, it is a little funny that they take out the Siamese cat song. They don't even have Siamese cats in there. You could have left them the same, just change the voices. Oh, I see, they're not bad enough for House of Mouse, but way too bad here. And they just replaced their song with the most forgettable beat. I can't remember a thing about it. Honestly, a lot of this would matter less if any of the actors were, well, acting. Everyone has such a bland delivery in this, like they all have to be super chipper and super happy like a Hallmark card or something. The only one who has any personality is Aunt Sarah, and she's not in the movie for that long. But I guess that just matches the forgettable nature of the entire flick. Because that's what it is, forgettable, boring, and unneeded. I know you're probably tired of me saying this whenever one of these remakes comes out, but if you want the better version, watch the better version. As for this Disney Plus opus, I'm gonna go watch Mandalorian again. Alright, so I'm cheating a little bit with this show, like really cheating, because I said before, whenever I talked about a show this year, I wanted to be completed so I could look at the thing as a whole, and this one just got started. Honestly, at the time I'm recording this, season 1 isn't even done yet. But even with not that many episodes out yet, I feel like there's a lot to talk about with The Mandalorian, and so does everyone else, because this show is just exploding. With the Star Wars movies being up and down over the years, and honestly a lot of Star Wars property kind of being the same, they're kind of hit and miss. I feel like this is something in this universe I'm really into, I'm really excited for, like I want to kind of live here. In the same way I'd like to live in Sin City. There's just kind of this cool style and this badass nature and just this quiet complexity going on that you don't usually see that much in, well, sci-fi or action or really anything much nowadays. The show is about a bounty hunter called the Mandalorian. There's several of them, though not a ton as there used to be, and they do their best to keep their identity a secret, never taking off their masks. Yeah, it's kind of a Judge Dredd thing that way. The real Judge Dredd. At first I thought maybe this could be a problem as, for a movie that's alright, but for a show, man, how are you gonna follow this guy for a long time if you never see his face? But so much about this character is kept deep and simple. He doesn't talk much, but you know what he's like. He's angry, but he's in control. He's very to himself, but he will definitely act. He doesn't put up with any bullshit, but he'll do what needs to be done, both professionally and ethically, even if that means giving up something very important. One of the factors that keeps us interested in him is that there is so much mystery around him, and they do show you bits and pieces of his past. You do see him as a child, something tragic happened. He thinks of it a lot, so it's something that really defines him. But they're showing it to you very slowly. The rest of the show, so far, is him traveling and performing these jobs, but there's one in particular that he seems to be really stuck with. The Empire, or what's left of it, has hired him to pick up a particular organism. An adorable little meme everybody is calling Baby Yoda. Though clearly this can't be Baby Yoda, this takes place after Return of the Jedi. He seems to be the same species, and again, there's a lot of mystery around him. Where'd he come from? How many of these are there? Why does the Empire want him? As you'd imagine, there's a lot of betrayal, backstabbing, people banding together and then turning on one another. And a big crazy ass chase starts that of course he's in the middle of. So what I really like about this show is that it does what I honestly like the most in the Star Wars universe. It's visual storytelling. There's a lot of atmosphere, a lot of side quests, and not a ton of talking. Yeah, no prequel Congress talks or the economic imbalance of space horses or whatever. It's like a spaghetti western, the man with no name, or in this case, no face. traveling the galaxy, running away from his past, trying to get by, but despite his brooding demeanor, there's always something he does that's ethical, but always gets him in trouble. Most of the characters work the same way. They're simple, but you can understand them very quickly. They don't say much, but through their movements and their actions and the few words they do say, you know what they're all about. The show was developed by Jon Favreau, who I've been shedding a lot on lately, but I really think he's hit on something amazing here. This is what I wanted the Solo movie to be. A long time ago, they were talking about doing a Mos Eisley show or film, and I was excited because I thought it would be something like this. And everybody was like, oh, why are they doing that? They're making a movie out of anything. But I thought, man, the tough, aggressive, but blunt and to-the-point environment is kind of what I loved in a lot of these Star Wars movies. It gave you bullet points but left open a lot of room for discussion and interpretation. Much like a lot of those great westerns or gangster stories or samurai stories. So, as of now, I'm in love with this show, as I'm sure a lot of people are. Will it continue to go in this direction? Will there be twists and turns we can all get behind? Or will something inevitably happen that loses a good chunk of us? I don't know, but as of now, there's something really solid, really cool, and even kind of complex when you read into what they're doing and why they're doing it. I love the hell out of this show, and I can't wait to see more. Well, we're at it again. Time to talk about the best Spider-Man movie ever made. And time for me again, like a jackass, to go, yeah, that was good. Even better than the last one. That was good. Okay, I'm gonna give this movie a little bit more credit. It does step up several things a lot more compared to its predecessor. Peter Parker is back as the web-slinging hero still attending class, but he's feeling a lot more melancholy this time because of spoiler. Yeah, spoiler, there's a spoiler, even though you all know it. You all know what this is. Spoiler, spoiler, I said the word, you happy? Anywho, spoiler. Tony Stark is dead. What? Next you'll tell me Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Oh, you said that, spoiler! Anyway, Peter's obviously feeling very bummed because after his passing is kind of Uncle Ben, if you will, working a little backwards, but okay, I'm kind of okay with this. He gets all these cool gadgets that apparently Stark had planned out for him to use because he want him to kind of take his place, so to speak. But Peter, still just being a boy in high school, doesn't think he has the responsibility to take it on. As you know, with great power, yada yada yada. When traveling to Venice on a school trip, he sees someone else that he thinks would handle that responsibility a lot better. A super being from another dimension called Mysterio. He forms a pretty strong friendship with him, and the more he talks, the more he realizes he doesn't want this responsibility. I know, a Spider-Man movie where he doesn't want to be Spider-Man, imagine. The rest of the movie is stuff you've usually seen in Spider-Man films, but it's still done relatively well. He has to make sure nobody knows his secret identity while constantly always trying to save the day. He wants to form a relationship with Mary Jane. He has to pass his classes while making sure nobody dies, all that kind of stuff. So okay, there's really two ways you can kind of come at this film, and neither is really the wrong way. The way I think a lot of people come at it is, this is a Spider-Man issue. It's another story. It has some depth, it has some intrigue, it has some laughs, it has a lot of charm to it, and it does that totally fine. It does a good job. I liked it. Are there awkward moments? Sure, but what Spider-Man movie doesn't have that? The way I want to come to this movie, but I'm trying to tell myself not to because I just don't think it's the right way to do it, is as a Spider-Man movie. A big film. Like when one of these came out, they were kind of these big epic stories with big epic villains. But like the last one, this is clearly an MCU movie that just happens to be Spider-Man. And I can kind of see why. We don't really have a superhero in the MCU that's like this. It's just a kid going to high school and it's kind of smaller stories. And yeah, it's always the world's gonna be destroyed and some big bad guy's gonna kill people, whatever. But it's nothing really that new or epic compared to some of their bigger stories like Infinity War, Guardians 2, and so forth. But in a strange way, this might weirdly work. I think the series is kind of doing the slow burn. I mean, you know the general story. Parker gets these powers and then discovers the big responsibility that's involved when somebody close to him dies. And that, even though they don't do it in one movie, it's kinda what still is going on here. With Tony Stark, I feel like they no longer need the Uncle Ben character, even though they're kinda hinting that he is in this universe. The ending of this movie I won't give away, but it's hinting towards something that's never been done in the Spider-Man movies before, and I'm so excited for it. It feels like it's taking it to the next level, and it's doing so in a very slow way. But yeah, as a standalone film, can I still say this is it? They finally got Spider-Man right again? I don't know. I don't think we're there yet, but I don't know if we're supposed to be there yet. The other Spider-Man movies had to squeeze a lot of epic storytelling into these short time spans. I mean, this is years and years of comic books being put in. This one might just be taking its time. It's kind of like when you watch a TV series and you see those first few episodes and you're like, this is fine, but you don't say this is one of the great shows. You wait until episode 4 or 5 or maybe even a later season in order to say that. So because of that, some of the issues do stick out a little bit more to me. For example, the original story behind the villain I thought was better than the actual story behind him. Again, I won't give too much away, but what they were setting up before I thought was a little cooler, and yeah, I know the original is closer to the comics, and it actually very cleverly ties into Stark, but it's kind of like what they did in Iron Man 3 where they kind of trick you with the villain, but the thing is, they still had another threat, another big something that was intimidating for the main hero to go against. This one, it's still just the thing they tricked you with, so the climax doesn't feel especially big or important. It's just kind of another stopping a guy doing something bad. As goofy as villains like the Green Goblin or Doc Ock or the Lizard were, they still felt big and grand, where this feels like a much smaller scale. But again, that could be the point. It's kinda hard to judge right now, because we have to see where they go with it. I feel like these movies might finally be building to that big, grand Spider-Man movie I was waiting for. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is some depth in this. I mean, there's especially a great scene where all these illusions are used to, like, drive Peter nuts and give into his nightmares. And it's a really great scene, and I haven't really seen that in other Spider-Man movies. I was kind of hoping the rest of the film would be like that, but for now, it's just kind of a teaser of what we might get from an actual big Spider-Man movie. So yeah, bottom line, like the last one, I think it's a good movie. Do I think it's great? No, but I do think it's better than the last one. And I think the idea is for them to kind of do the slow burn, and I'm actually really okay with that. But here's the other thing I haven't brought up yet. We're in a post-Spider-Verse world. To me, this is hands down the best Spider-Man movie, the one that has everything in it. It even has like every kind of Spider-Man in it. It's just amazing. So sequels to that, I'm much more excited for. Where sequels to this, I'd like to see, but I'm just not as amped up. And I think that's saying something. The Spider-Man that has a Spider-Pig in it is bigger and grander and more incredible than the actual Spider-Man movies that are just focused on Peter Parker Spider-Man. There's something really great, but also kinda wrong about that too. I guess I can't be too picky. I mean, it's not like we don't have a variety of Spider-Man movies to choose from, and it's not like we don't have a phenomenal one that's finally out and it's gonna get more movies. Maybe it's just the OCD fan in me that says, man, if we can take elements of the first series and the second series and this series and somehow combine them together, we can get that perfect Spider-Man movie. And yeah, I guess you could argue they did, and it's called Into the Spider-Verse. But you know what I'm talking about, just focusing on one Spider-Man, Peter Parker, doing his thing so everybody can be like, wow, I see why this is one of the great superheroes. As this series is now, I would not see why this is one of the great superheroes. I would just see it as another superhero series. A good one, but just another one. But as I said before, they could be building up to it. And if they are, fantastic. I'll wait. I'll totally see where they go with it. If not, then I say this is just another enjoyable superhero movie. And given some of the things we've gotten from other Spider-Man movies, I'd say that's good enough. So if you saw my Disneycember review of Maleficent or even my Nostalgia Critic review of Maleficent, you might know I didn't exactly see it as a very good movie. I really like Sleeping Beauty, especially the villain, so to see them suddenly do this wicked thing where it's all a misunderstanding and she's really good, it just seemed pretty lame to me. But where that was just one consistent type of bad, Maleficent Mistress of Evil is every kind of bad you can imagine. The first third is annoying and cliched and terribly written. The second chunk is boring and dull and goes on forever. And the last third is the most violent, insane body count I think I've ever seen a movie like this have. I'm not even kidding. It goes off the rails bonkers. There's like a ton of different tones in this movie. All of them are bad, and I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of a marvel. The film opens with Aurora, played by Ellie Fanning, being proposed to by Philip, played by the only actor who could actually be more boring than Philip. But Maleficent doesn't want it to happen because she hates humans. Well, wait, wasn't that the plot of the first one? She hates humans, but then she learned to like them? Well, no, we're doing it again. Yeah, even though she saved everybody, everyone still sees her as the villain, so she gets to go through the exact same arc. Regardless, Philip's parents, especially his mother, played by Michelle Pfeiffer, are afraid of Maleficent but still have her over to see if they can get along. After pretty much the exact same dinner scene from Shrek 2, the father suddenly falls into a cursed sleep and, of course, everyone thinks Maleficent did, even though it's very much the very evil queen with the shifty eyes. While trying to get away, she comes across, surprisingly, her own species. Other horned people with wings see her and bring her into their colony, saying that a war between them and the humans is brewing and they need to attack. Aurora needs to find out what everybody in the audience has figured out an hour ago, and of course it ends with a big battle. Oh, did I say big? I meant Game of Thrones epic. It just comes right out of nowhere, to a point where you don't even see Maleficent that much, and even when she does appear, she barely says a word. So much of this movie is showing these cute, cuddly little characters and those 3 stupid fairies, and they all have these terrible jokes that's obviously meant for little kids, but in the last act, tons of them are killed off. If you were to watch the opening of this movie and just be like, yeah, half of these characters will be dead, I mean, you just couldn't even believe it. And it's not something like, oh, they just say a magic word and they all come back to life. No, they stay dead. It is beyond bananas, but that's also part of the fun of it. I know that sounds weird because I was talking about how boring and irritating it was, but knowing this is the final act, it makes the other 2 acts a lot more enjoyable. It's kind of like that movie Serenity, which, okay, I won't give away the twist to that, but it kind of has the same thing where the first 2/3 are really boring, but then when you find out what happens, it kind of changes the first 2/3. Like, what? This is what it was leading to? Are you nuts? Suddenly it adds a whole new layer of entertainment I didn't know was in front of me the whole time. But does that mean it's good? No. Wow, no. I mean, at times it's shot nice, and the battle at the end, I'll give credit, is kind of exciting, even if you don't care for anybody, but no, it's bad. But it's a unique kind of bad, a bad I haven't really seen that much of. So, in that kind of respect, I recommend it. You just have to see this movie to try and figure out what the hell were they going for. Like, so many people get killed, and then suddenly, on the same day, they act like it's nothing. People that were literally trying to kill each other moments ago are suddenly holding hands in the next scene. It's totally cuckoo. But yeah, where the first one was just kind of a mediocre bad, like I probably forget it pretty quickly, this one I will never forget. And I know there's people out there that search for bad movies like this, like ones that challenge that kind of badness and give a new spin on it, even if it wasn't intentional. Well, this one definitely does that. It's awful in so many different ways you don't usually see combined, especially in a Disney flick. So yeah, you can probably figure out if this is a movie you want to see or not. I mean, yeah, it's not very good, but hopefully listening to this you can figure out if it's a not kind of good that you'll find good. Oh god, that's confusing. You know what I mean. Hopefully you can figure out if it's a so bad it's good movie that you'll enjoy. I know I certainly did. Take a look and see if you too can figure out what the fuck. Christopher Robin is often thrown in with the Disney live-action remakes, and I don't know, it feels a little different than that. It's a strange film I can't really get that much of a grip on. In many respects, I really find it to be quite mature, especially for Disney. In other respects, it seems too childish and cliché. In some respects, it seems really rugged and kind of gritty. In other respects, it looks downright ugly. On the one hand, I love that they took one of the great literary characters that translated beautifully into one of the great Disney characters, representing the almost Taoist nature of his actions, but it's met with every bullshit storyline you've heard in a story like this, not spending enough time with your family, the evil big bad work. Now I'm all over the map with this, so let's see if I can come to a logical conclusion. Christopher Robin, as a young boy, it looks like is leaving the 100-acre wood and going out into the real world to grow up. Well, even though he does, into Ewan McGregor actually, and even raises a family of his own, it looks like his own childhood has not changed that much, as Pooh, Tigger, Rabbit, and everyone else seems to stay in the 100-acre wood waiting for him to come back. Wouldn't you know it though, Christopher Robin is way too busy at his job, doesn't have time for his family, and when this big vacation was supposed to happen, something super mega bad occurs and a lot of people are going to be laid off unless he can think of a solution. While trying to figure something out, he comes across Winnie the Pooh, voiced by Jim Cummings, who brings him back to the 100-acre wood to try and remember his childhood. Can he learn the value of being important while also finding a way to balance his job? Oh, what do you think? So yeah, the setup is kinda lame and very standard. Oh, not Christopher Robin growing up, I like that. I even really like the idea of him trying to keep his childhood alive while trying to deal with this adult world. And to the movie's credit, it doesn't quite go Mary Poppins Returns, where there's just this evil banker that's trying to destroy everybody's lives. I mean, yeah, there is this incompetent boss, but he's not in it for very long. But it's just we've seen this done a million times in Mary Poppins and Hook and a little bit of Where the Wild Things Are, and yeah, the more I think about Mary Poppins Returns. However, where something like Mary Poppins Returns is almost insulting with its message, this one really does try to take it seriously. It's very slow-paced, really takes its time, and isn't especially showy. It does seem to keep the simplicity of what the Winnie the Pooh books were about. Until, you know, a car chase at the end. But at the same time, it's not really a car chase where there's like a bad guy, it's just something to help people at the jobs. It's a little relatable, but it still feels too familiar, too manipulative. There's kind of this strange inconsistency throughout the entire movie. For example, Jim Cummings once again does Winnie the Pooh and Tigger. That's fantastic. In fact, honestly, I'm kind of realizing more and more what a phenomenal actor he is. There's a line where Pooh is tired and he sees a bench and says, "That looks like a bed." Now, as a line, that's nothing. It's not even a very well-written line. But listen to how he says it.
"Oh, I'm getting very sleepy. And that looks like a bed."
There is so much beautiful simplicity and charm in his delivery. He's become more than just a replacement voice for the original. He really has become this character and maybe understands him better than anyone else living. The best scenes are like that. Like there's a scene where he's on a train and he asks the little girl for honey. She says it and he just kind of smiles. That's perfect. Like that's Winnie the Pooh. You got it. Nailed it. Wonderful. But when you hear that iconic voice, you want to see it come out of the iconic doll, and this doll looks really rugged and kind of creepy. Every time he talks, it just kind of weirds me out. But okay, so they look a little different, big deal. Well, they also sound a little different. Yeah, Jim Cummings is Tigger and Pooh, but everyone else has different voices. They don't even attempt to make them sound like the original characters. So even then you're constantly being thrown off when Pooh would say, "Oh hi Rabbit" in his voice and then hear a completely different other voice for Rabbit. Ewan McGregor as Christopher Robin also gets a little tiring after a while. How long can he just be like, "Wah, it's me, Christopher Robin. Pooh, what's going on here? I just don't know." You're kind of saying to yourself, can you just find your childhood already? You're kind of getting on my nerves. But with that said, yeah, there is a lot about finding your childhood in this movie, and not always in the beat yourself over the head way. It is kind of simple, and it is kind of vague in the best way sometimes. But even with that, it goes a little overboard. I mean, the 100-acre woods is really kind of ugly looking, and even the characters are really kind of ugly looking, and usually I'm okay with trying something a little different, but you just kind of get tired of looking at them after a while. It's just so much gray and no color. Winnie the Pooh is supposed to be simple, but it's also supposed to be imaginative. I mean, look at these other Winnie the Pooh movies. They're gorgeous. They're simple, but they're gorgeous. You so appreciate the color of the leaves and the seasons. I don't appreciate anything about how this movie looks. But again, you could argue that's sort of the idea. Christopher Robin is grown up and the color is gone, but there's not even that much color in the beginning. You know, when he's a child and things are good, but wait, he's going away, so maybe that's supposed to be part of it too? I don't know. I guess I can say I really appreciate the attempt that this movie made, and that it does try to be very adult, and it doesn't try to be too kid-friendly, but ironically, the more kid-friendly Winnie the Pooh movies feel more adult. Because there is a respect for simple things outside of just saying it. It's showing it too, it's showing it in the colors, it's showing it in the personalities, it's showing it in the various little but also kind of big adventures they have. Whenever Winnie the Pooh got too big, that's where it always felt like it was feeling false. And this never goes too big, but it never stays at the right amount of small either. It's tricky, and I'm not gonna act like a lot of talent didn't go into this to try and balance this out. I think the best way I can sum it up is, if you look at the trailer, you see the toys and you're not freaked out by them, and the colors aren't too gray, and you like this initial idea, I think you'll enjoy this movie and it'll give you exactly what you're looking for. In a weird way, I guess I am recommending it, because I can see a lot of people reading something really deep into it, and for the right reasons. Did it do it for me? No, but I do feel it's worth taking the hour and a half or so to see if it'll do it for you. I've heard people say they really got a lot out of this movie, and if it did, I think that's great. All things considered, it does teach some very important things. It just didn't do it in a way that I really got into. But maybe it will for you. Take a look and see if it's worth giving a bother. It's interesting how many times I've talked about Winnie the Pooh and Disneycember. I mean, yeah, everybody knows who he is and the characters, but I don't know many people who obsess over him, at least not like other Disney characters. I mean, yeah, there's merchandise out there, but how many people do you know that collect a ton of Winnie the Pooh stuff? I'm sure they're out there, but not a ton. It's not something I would call a dedicated fan base. But nevertheless, there have been so many Winnie the Pooh properties out there, so many movies, so many specials, so many adaptations. There is a likable kind of simplicity that people do connect with. And one of the better adaptations, in my opinion, is The New Adventures of Winnie the Pooh, a TV show that majority of the time found that special simplicity that made the characters so special. Which is more difficult than it sounds. Think about it. Think about like your favorite cartoon show and how many special episodes they have. An episode that's gonna touch you, that's gonna be emotional, that's really gonna tug at your heartstrings. Winnie the Pooh is supposed to do that at least half the time, if not more. So creating a series where half the episodes have to be special episodes, again, if not more, is not an easy task. But nevertheless, I thought the show did it pretty well. The story is, well, pretty much every Winnie the Pooh story you've ever heard. It's Christopher Robin and his stuffed animal Pooh, who's so alive with his friends like Tigger and Piglet and Rabbit and so forth, that Christopher Robin doesn't even really need to be around for the adventures to happen. It's like he's somewhere else, he's in school, which always fascinated me. Is he imagining these adventures are going on while he's at school? Is it kind of like The Cat Returns? He just believes in them so much, it's like they have their own little fantasies going on even if he's not thinking about it? I love abstract thinking like that. So majority of the time, it's Pooh and Tigger and all the other characters just kind of going about their everyday lives, learning lessons, getting into all sorts of trouble, and in the end, just finding a nice spot outside to sit down and chill. Again, something difficult to do effectively on a continual basis, but the show does it pretty well. There's a sense it doesn't have to move too fast, they don't have to keep throwing a lot of exciting things at you. Sometimes just walking around, shooting the shit, and enjoying the environment can be enough. With that said, there's definitely episodes that are much more adventure-oriented. There's like ones about being a cowboy, or running away from monsters and bullies, stuff like that. I usually saw these as the lesser episodes, but they were by no means bad. The episodes that really stuck out to me are the ones that really took their time to focus on the weight of the emotion, even if what they're talking about was very simple or very complex. There's one I remember where Rabbit finds this little orphan bird and he decides to take care of him. And it isn't just for one day, it's over a really long period of time, and he sees himself as a parent, and the bird sees him as a parent, but at some point, he literally has to leave the nest, and Rabbit isn't happy about that. He's actually really upset, and he doesn't want to say goodbye, and he kind of turns his back on him, and the bird is crying, and it's super emotional. You don't even really see the bird cry, you just kind of see his back, and Rabbit feeling bad, and it's a highly emotional scene. There's another great one where everybody feels bad for Eeyore because, you know, he just seems like a character that's always feeling bad, so everybody tries to cheer him up and they constantly keep making things worse. But Eeyore reveals he doesn't just sit around doing nothing because he's sad, he sits around, looks at the sky, and does what he calls cloud painting. What exactly is it? Well, he claims he's just looking at the sky using his imagination, but everybody runs up and can suddenly see it. Again, it's kind of a complex idea, but it's kind of a simple idea too, and it's a really beautiful moment. I feel like shows of this caliber are around in that they do kind of tackle interesting and complex emotions, but they're usually with these very complicated plots. Which is fine, kids love complicated plots. I really got into them, and I think if I grew up nowadays, I would love a lot of the shows that were coming out. But Winnie the Pooh is kind of good at fooling you into thinking, yeah, this is just a simple little bit of nothing, but then the more you let it sit and you come back to it years later, you realize it might have been more important than you gave it credit for. Over the years, I keep coming back to the character, and as I get older and older, I like him more and more. I like stories and characters that do that. I like him as a kid, then I kind of lose interest, and then I come back years later, and it's actually a little better. And for reasons I can't always 100% explain. There's just a confidence that what they're doing, no matter how simple, is valuable. There's a simplicity to being complex, and there's a complexity to being simple. It's kind of that great paradox that keeps feeding into itself. It's not always easy to explain, but it's wonderful to feel. And I personally think a lot of that is represented in this show. It's a very difficult thing to get right. But I think this show did get it right, and it deserves a lot of people taking a second. So I'm not gonna pretend I was a fan of the first two Descendant movies, but I will admit they were a little, I don't want to say better, but less bad than I thought they were gonna be. I mean, it's a dumb gimmicky idea, but for what they were, I thought it had some good dancing and the actors were clearly trying. I never felt like anyone was really half-assing it, they were just going all out on an idea that wasn't that great. But still going all out and trying to make something good. Descendants 3 is more along the lines of what I thought I was gonna get, where almost everything about it feels tired, unmotivated, and sloppy. With still a few good dance numbers. Mal has just been proposed to by the king, and it looks like she's gonna be the new queen of Aradan. But this makes Audrey, the daughter of Sleeping Beauty, very unhappy because she wanted to be queen. So she decides to steal the magic scepter, which is guarded by only one security guard, Jesus. And she uses it to wreak havoc on everybody. Mal's plan, as the soon-to-newly be appointed queen, close down the barrier between the two worlds. You see, they were still doing this kind of foreign exchange thing where the heroes would go into the villain's land and take a few villain kids over to sort of show them this new world and branch out like the other movies. But now, according to her, it seems too dangerous even though she is one of the villains that has come from this world and she wants to close down the connection forever. Yeah, not temporary, not until they can think of another solution, but forever. There's like a million other ways around this, and they act like this is the only solution. Now, here's the thing. I know it's fairy tales. I allow this stuff in things like Frozen and Snow White and all these other movies where it's like, yeah, there's other ways around it, but in fairy tales, you give that leeway. But where those seem like small elements, you know, not really the focus of the story, this is the focus of the story. Like, she's torn, she doesn't want to do this, but she feels like it's the only way, and it's just clearly not. And maybe even that would be a little less distracting if everything else in the movie was trying a little harder, but it's hard to explain, it just kind of feels like everybody's on autopilot. Where in the first two movies, even when something wasn't working, I felt like everybody was trying really hard, this has kind of the Home Alone 2 effect. I can't say for sure it was rushed or everybody was just so confident because they already had 2 hits under their belt, but it feels like everybody's doing this movie because it's just kind of a smart career move. I don't know that. Maybe everybody had a ball making this movie. Maybe they were really happy to make it and they thought this was the best one or something. But the way the story, the dialogue, and especially the acting from everybody comes across, it feels like they're there kind of because they have to be.
I'm supposed to protect Oridon.
You did. You do protect Oridon.
We're exposed to danger.
Maleficent's scepter and the Queen's crown have been stolen.
Now with that said, there's a few things that work. There's a couple dance sequences that are either really impressive or just so silly I can't help but love them. This one with the knights, I mean, just look at it. That's so ridiculous, but it's kind of fun too. The girl who played Ursula's daughter is back, and I'm realizing more and more I think this might have been the only villain that had any class in these movies. Sometimes Hades, who's completely different in this, but again, I'm kind of used to that in these movies anyway, can be a little fun and intimidating. But for everything else, it just feels off. I remember there's this one scene where the villain turns Mal into this old lady, and it actually kind of looked like she was having fun, and they had a few good jokes, and it was just mostly in her acting. Like, she did this pretty funny, and it was especially hilarious to see her suddenly riding a bike as this old lady. It's just really, really entertaining. Had the movie possessed a sense of humor like that throughout the whole thing, maybe it could have been really enjoyable. But no, she turns back to being normal in like a few minutes, because, you know, we can't have our Disney property without the pretty girl in the lead. And that's what it feels like, a Disney property that can't have any of the different stuff because it's too risky. And speaking of which, guess what the moral of the movie is? That's right, you can't judge a book by its cover, especially when it comes to people. And wouldn't you know it, as with a lot of Disney movies nowadays, there's kind of this separation between these classes of people and this barrier that's stopping them from interacting with each other, and one sees the other as evil and they shouldn't do that. I feel like between this, Maleficent 2, Nutcracker, this is just a constantly reoccurring theme that, I mean, yeah, we see a lot in the world and we've definitely seen through history, but I just feel like we're seeing this exact same setup over and over and over, and it's just getting tiring. I mean, Christ, how many Disney movies have we had now where the villain is a surprise? Like, oh, it's not who you thought and it's somebody that sees every type of this one person as one bad thing? It's not only feeling old, it's feeling preachy because it's been done so many times recently. I mean, yeah, it's a good message, I've just heard it to death, and every one of these movies that does it acts like this is the first one that's doing it. So yeah, if you have kids that just want to finish out watching these movies and they're really into them, I mean, I don't think there's anything that bad in it. Well, I don't know, the Mal character going so extreme right off the bat is a little alarming. They play it like anyone can make this mistake, but it's just not done in a way where you believe it, like at all. But honestly, that's probably not what most kids are looking for. They're looking for the cute teens and the cool outfits and the awesome dance numbers and the fun songs. And they'll get it, I guess. But where the other ones surprisingly gave a little bit more thought to it, this one, I think feels like it's giving a lot of thought. Again, that groundbreaking message that no other movie is making right now. But it's just feeling more and more phony the more and more these movies are made. So yeah, if you got a little kid that wants to watch it, it's probably fine. Anyone else can dance pretty far away. I forgot this was a Disney movie, huh? Whoopi Goldberg stars in Sister Act, but do I even need to explain that to you? This is maybe her most popular movie. It's Whoopi Goldberg as a nun. This just has great comedic potential. When it came out, I loved it. The comedy, the music, the story, I just thought was great. And now looking back as an adult, it's good. It's good. Wow, I remember this being a lot funnier. There's a lot of times where I find myself not laughing where I remember laughing as a kid, yet there's still something very likable about it. And I think a lot of it is the actresses playing the nuns. Speaking of which, how do they enter the picture? Whoopi Goldberg plays a singer named Dolores Van Cartier. Isn't that a great name? She's going out with a mobster but isn't really aware of that until she witnesses a murder. She runs away and goes to the cops who are looking to put her in witness protection. The mobster, though, played by Harvey Keitel, has connections all over the place, so they have to get creative with where they hide her. Wah, wah. Enter Maggie Smith as Mother Superior at a nearby church. She is the funniest thing in this movie, and that's saying a lot because most of the performers in this are very funny. She thinks it's best to disguise Dolores and put her in a nun outfit and have her blend in with the rest of the other nuns. Of course, hilarity ensues, but a lot of that comes from not Whoopi's reactions, but Smith's reactions. The minute she sees her, she wants nothing to do with her, leading to probably my favorite line delivery in the whole film.
You have taken a vow of hospitality to all in need.
I lied.
She just has that great look like, I know I can't get away with this, but let me try anyway because I'm that desperate not to be with this person. And the whole film is filled with little moments like that. The writing, honestly, it's not that great. If you were to read it, you probably wouldn't get that many laughs. Actually, you'd probably say it's a little too kiddish. But the facial expressions, the line delivery, the reactions, all these nuns have distinct personalities and they work wonderfully off each other.
Are you always this cheerful? Am I?
Apparently they said one of the big secrets was they didn't just cast extras as the nuns in the background, they got actual actresses. They did this not only to give the nuns more personality, but the movie more personality, and it really worked.
We didn't have electricity. Cold water, bare feet, sounds wonderful. It was hell on earth, I loved it.
The music, honestly, is amazing. I'm not really that much into this kind of Vegas gospel lounge music, but they just make it come alive. The singing, the orchestration, the way it's shot, there is so much energy to this. Again, it's not even like super funny, it's just fun. It's a fun scene to watch. I think the best sum up is these altar boys who are tapping their legs to the music, and yeah, that's kind of what I get out of it too. It's just fun to tap your leg and get into it and just really have a good time. So yeah, the story, it's cheesy and formulaic. The writing, honestly not that inspired and could be a lot better considering it's Whoopi Goldberg as a nun. You could really go all out with this. Make it a PG-13 or an R to get more laughs, make it a little more risque. But the personality of the nuns really rubs off on the personality of the movie. As does the music and the energy, and I don't know, there's something surprisingly likable about it. It's charming, it's weirdly charming. Even though I didn't get a lot of laughs out of it, I did still get a lot of joy out of it. I surprisingly got quite a few requests of people asking me to do Disney's short films collection, and my first thought was, well, it seems kinda pointless cause I've seen them all, right? I mean, I watch Pixar films and I see the shorts before them, but then I realized the Pixar shorts and the Disney shorts are two very different things. The Pixar shorts were released before, well, Pixar movies. The Disney shorts were released sometimes before Disney movies, but sometimes just on DVD. Which means some of these I have missed, and looking them all over, I have to say they're pretty damn impressive. I guess the best way to go about it is to talk about each short. I mean, there's only 12, and I can just give a quick sum up of what I thought of them. The first one is John Henry, the story of the classic railroad man born with a hammer in his hand. I love the music in this, and for the most part I like the style too, incorporating a lot more of that old sketchy look that you may remember from movies like Robin Hood and The Rescuers and so forth. It's weird, I never cared too much for it in the older films, but something about it here, it looks kind of nicer and cleaned up, even though it's kind of sketchy. It's odd, but somehow it works. The next is Lorenzo. This might have my favorite art style out of all of them. Look at how simplified yet complex it is. It looks amazing! The story is hilariously twisted too, with a literal fat cat mocking the starving cats outside until one of them decides to curse him, making it so that his tail has a mind of his own. Lorenzo does everything he can to kill it off, drowning it, trying to have a train run it over. It's actually a little dark. Seeing how this is set to classical music, my guess is this was originally supposed to be a Fantasia segment, but never made the cut. But what we got is pretty damn awesome. Even though I feel like the curtain call at the end was kind of an attempt to give a happier ending to what should have been a more twisted ending. Next is The Little Match Girl. I've already talked about this one before, but watching it again, yeah, it's still sad as hell. It's animated beautifully, the music is fantastic, and again, I won't give away the ending, but it's a perfect kind of tearjerker that can really hit adults and some kids, though others may look at it and not quite catch on, which I kind of respect. I feel like the ending might change the older you get, and that's not a bad thing. I still love it just as much now as when I first saw it. Next is How to Hook Up Your Home Theater, a Goofy cartoon. And by God, it really is a Goofy cartoon. As some of you probably figured out, I'm a huge Goofy fan when he's done right. Anytime he's in an environment where he's surrounded by other Goofies, for some reason those were the funniest. The slapstick was great, they were refreshingly mean-spirited. And this one does its homework. When it started, I kinda thought it was gonna be like the Goofy cartoons we saw in House of Mouse, where they were a little too friendly and not really going all the way. Well, this goes 1,000,000%. If you're obsessed with Goofy cartoons like I was, you'll recognize a lot of these backgrounds, you'll recognize a lot of these gags. There's so many little callbacks, but it's also just a straight up funny cartoon even if you've never seen Goofy. I really laughed my ass off watching it and have to tip my hat to the people that love Goofy as much as I do. Next is TikTok Tale. A short that looks like something right out of a children's book. I mean, look at this, it looks like an illustration come to life. It's pretty much about a little clock that everyone makes fun of because he has an embarrassing ornament on the top of him. It's really interesting how well they give these clocks expressions with no faces. It's all in the body language. Even though there's no eyes, eyebrows, or mouth, I can always tell what they're thinking at every moment, and that is not an easy thing to do. I would say if it wanted to have more of an emotional impact, it probably should have been a little longer, like maybe an additional 5 minutes, but it still works out pretty well. Next is Prep and Landing, Operation Secret Santa. Mrs. Claus instructs 2 elves to sneak into Santa's office and get something for her. I'm not gonna lie, watching this, all I could think of was Arthur Christmas that had kind of the military elves, though I don't know, that can't be the first one that did that. Regardless, this was still animated well and had a few laughs, and nothing really groundbreaking or is probably gonna stay with me that long, but I remember liking it fine when it was on. Next is The Ballad of Nessie. A cute little tale about the Loch Ness Monster and the importance of, get this, having a good cry. Yeah, how often do you have that be the moral of your story? A little different, but the more I thought about it, a good moral. It's a decent thing to teach, especially as you get older. And with the legend himself, Billy Connolly, narrating, this is definitely a sweet fable. Next is Tangled Ever After, which takes place in, you guessed it, the Tangled universe. But the horse and the gecko have to get the ring in order for Rapunzel to get married. And as you'd imagine, comedy ensues. It is exactly what it is, a funny little romp that takes place in the Tangled universe, so it's the same characters, the same backgrounds, which all look nice. I just always remember finding the horse funnier when he was chasing after someone, like when he was like Javert from Les Mis or something. But it's fine, I laughed enough through it. Next is Paperman. At the time, a lot of animation buffs were saying this is the future of hand-drawn animation, and I didn't know how to take that. When I first saw it, I could definitely tell it was CG with lines put over it, and it felt a little off to me. I don't know, maybe it's a part of me still wanting to hold on to traditional hand-drawn animation, but looking back at it years later, it is a very nicely worked out piece of art. It's a nice little fairy tale about a man trying to get a woman's attention, and it honestly does everything it's supposed to do. Have a lot of style, have a lot of unique charm, have a lot of expression. When I think of the kind of animation it did eventually inspire, like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, I do realize this was kind of a game changer, and probably does deserve to be recognized as that. Next is Get a Horse, a Mickey Mouse cartoon. An unbelievably smart idea that's projecting an old school Mickey Mouse cartoon on a screen, but then they jump out of the screen and they constantly keep fighting in between 3D and 2D. That's funny enough, but it all takes place in one shot. You're just watching it, laughing and having such a good time seeing them constantly fighting back and forth and going in between styles. It's very clever. Next is Feast. Kinda like Marley and Me, it shows the relationship between a dog and his owner, and then a dog and his owner and the woman he's interested in and the stuff that they go through. The fun part of it though is that it's done entirely through how a dog would probably notice. When he's alone, he's fed nothing but junk food, but then she enters the picture and suddenly it's healthier food, and he doesn't focus as much on him. As it goes on, you probably put together that everybody realizes what's most important and where everything should go, and yeah, it's done very well. And finally we have Frozen Fever, which is, again, exactly what you would think it is, especially by this point. You know, with a lot of these lovable Frozen shorts that everybody loves. It's pretty straightforward. Elsa wants to throw Anna this big party, and she has all sorts of gifts lined out throughout the kingdom, and of course she sings about it and puts on all sorts of new dresses that you can now buy on new dolls, and yeah, it's pretty obvious why this exists. For what it is, it's fine. The song they have is very well put together and catchy, the animation is beautiful, and unlike Olaf's Frozen Adventure, they know to keep it relatively short. It's decent if you know what you're going in for. So yeah, that's 12 animated shorts that are all good. Some even great. There's different styles, different techniques, different tones, and honestly I never would have seen probably half of them unless I checked this Blu-ray out. So yeah, if you're an animation buff or a Disney buff, I really recommend this. It's great seeing so many wonderful animators take a break from these super long stories and tell something that's a lot shorter, a lot simpler, and sometimes even a lot deeper. Pop it in and give it a quick watch. Yeah, if you were around in the early 90s, then you know this phrase, and it probably drove you insane. This was the catchphrase of the little baby dinosaur from the Disney and ABC show Dinosaurs. Despite this catchphrase at the time being shoved down everybody's throat with the advertising and merchandising and so forth, revisiting this show, I actually found it was much better than I remember it. Oh, don't get me wrong, there's still plenty in it that's gimmicky and childish and obviously meant for little ones, but as the show progressed, it got a very solid cynical edge to it, using Jim Henson Studios' family-friendly looking designs to disguise what at times was actually pretty clever commentary. I know how crazy that sounds, but hear me out, there actually is more to the show than I think people give credit. The series at first kinda seems like a reversal of the Flintstones, with the dinosaurs running everything and the cavemen being more like the pets. The one downside I have to this is I never liked that the humans were the same size as the dinosaurs. I mean, I know they didn't exist at the same time, but dinosaurs didn't have sinks either. I know I'm overthinking it, but it just drove me nuts. Anywho, the majority of the show is centered around Earl Sinclair. He has a pretty run-of-the-mill family with a supportive wife, a rocking son, an insecure daughter, a pain-in-the-ass mother-in-law, and of course, a cute little baby who says cute little things. He has a best friend who's not very smart, a boss who's always a jerk, and all sorts of shenanigans happen around him with his harebrained schemes and stupid ideas. Like I said, sounds very run-of-the-mill, and at first it kind of is. A lot of the early episodes is just setting up the very basic characters, and in a way, kind of the very basic world. I mean, like I said, it's kind of like Flintstones, you've seen this before. It's cool seeing it in live action with the great animatronics and puppets, and honestly, I'd argue it looks better than the actual Flintstones movie. But early on, the characters and situations are a little cookie cutter, and you can even see where they cut corners. Just count how many times you see a lot of these dinosaur suits pop up again as different characters. But after the show began to grow an audience, the writers took a lot more risks in what they can get away with. Or maybe not risks, because they never flat out said what they were doing. For example, there's this great episode based around TV censorship. The baby sees a bad word on TV and it's repeated over and over and over, so he starts saying it. Everybody is horrified, and so they decide that the TV stations have to change the way TV is done. So that word is officially outlawed. But why stop at that word? Why not all bad words? Okay, well, all bad words are outlawed, but why stop there? How about scanty clothing? They don't like certain types of clothing, so they get rid of that. But why stop there? They just keep going and going and going until the law of the entire world is changed. But what makes this so brilliant is the swear word the baby says. You know what it is? Shmoo. What's a shmoo? Nobody knows. They never explain it. They never even give any context to what it might be. They just say it's really, really insulting, and everybody is horrified whenever it's said. Now, a kid can watch that and really have fun trying to imagine what it is. It kind of sparks the imagination and creativity. But an adult can watch it and totally get what they're doing. This was during what, at the time, was considered PC culture, you know, before things got better. But who's gonna look to dinosaurs to see them disrupting anything, especially when they're saying bad words that don't even exist? There's one that practically predicts the future. Earl's boss is running for president and chooses Earl as the only person to go against him, knowing he's a patsy. When Earl's conscience gets the best of him and he admits that he's a patsy and nobody should vote for the boss, but they shouldn't really vote for him either because he doesn't know what he's doing. They eventually vote for a newscaster. Yeah, a reality show host. There's another great one that satirizes war. In this world, they literally go to war over nuts. Yeah, over something as silly as jars of nuts. War is literally nuts in this world. But to them, war is just throwing stones. Yeah, it's like nothing, but then there's this big advancement when they move on to sticks. Literally throwing sticks and stones, and they're like, oh my god, somebody could lose an eye. Like, that's a big, big deal. All I could think of as a kid is, man, imagine if they saw wars that humans would make and how terrible that would be, and they're so shocked by this. It's silly, but you can actually pull some significance out of it. But by far, the episode everyone remembers is the final one. Probably the most depressing and cryptic finale that's ever been run by ABC. The dinosaurs finally get so comfortable and powerful that they end up destroying the world. Both through fire and winter of their own making, it looks like nobody's gonna make it. But Earl still stands by, the people in charge know what they're doing and won't let their entire species die away. The final image is just Earl looking out the window with his family, and that's it. Again, nobody would get upset because we don't see them die and they don't say any bad words, but everybody knows what's implied. This is how the dinosaurs have wiped themselves out, and it could be how we could wipe ourselves out. There's definitely hints to how humanity could do it, but they never get too specific. It's just a warning that these species were here and used to rule the planet, and now they're not. Now we're here currently ruling the planet, and one day we also may not. Would you expect that to be the ending of a show, the series finale that has the catchphrase, not the mama? Somewhere along the lines, the writers either got this super cynical edge, or they just realized if they disguised it enough, nobody would ever question them. But either way, they made a show that surprisingly has some smart satire. Now, with that said, is this one of the great shows? Not especially. I mean, the characters are still kind of cookie cutter, and the jokes can be hit or miss, and yeah, sometimes it does seem weird and silly just to be weird and silly, which isn't always bad, but it's not always funny either. But nevertheless, I think the show was smarter than people thought it was. And when people go back and watch it again, yeah, they see all the weird little catchphrases and the funny little family-friendly stuff, but the more they watch it, the more they do see elements of themselves in it too. Again, more in the stories than the characters, but they still see it. So yeah, I actually think this is a very smart and enjoyable show, even if it is very inconsistent. When it doesn't work, it's not god-awful or anything, it's just a little awkward. But when it does really work, it surprises you, and delights you that such a seemingly innocent show can have this surprising edge to it. I'm not guaranteeing you're gonna fall in love with it or anything, but I do think that you might find more than you originally remembered.
Honey, I'm home.
Well, it's happened. The masses have finally turned against Frozen, and all it took was this ass-numbingly long short, I say short very much in quotes, that ran before an amazing movie, Coco. Okay, so years from now, some of you might not even know what I'm talking about. You might just be like, well, this is just a cute little short with Olaf, what's the big deal? Well, Olaf's Frozen adventure has kind of a weird checkered history. Which you might be thinking, why this? Something that's based around one of Disney's biggest moneymakers and still really, really popular. The story centers around Olaf, who's experiencing his first Christmas. Yeah, it's kind of weird when you think about it. Frozen is very much associated with Christmas, yet there's never any talk of Christmas, so I guess it kind of makes sense to do something like this. But Olaf doesn't understand Christmas and what it means to celebrate it. It looks like Elsa and Anna don't really know how to celebrate it either because they never really had any tradition. They were kept separate, they never really saw each other, they had a pretty awkward childhood. Elsa particularly feels bummed out about this, so Olaf decides he's gonna go and find out what it means to have a holiday tradition. He comes across all sorts of different varieties of people and different traditions and different ways of celebrating, and decides he wants to take something special from each tradition to bring back to Elsa and Anna. As you would imagine though, things go wrong, Olaf gets lost, all sorts of hijinks happen, and Anna and Elsa have to go find him. Sounds innocent enough. I mean, this wasn't the first of these shorts we've gotten. We've gotten one with Tangled before, and we've even gotten one with Frozen before, and they were both big hits, especially the Frozen one. But people turned pretty fast on this short, even to a point where they had to actually take it off the opening of Coco. There was that much backlash. Man, there was already people kind of getting sick of Frozen, but to actually have it taken off a Disney property? That's crazy! So, what went wrong? Well, the big thing is the running time. We're used to seeing shorts now before a Disney property. It was kind of started with Pixar bringing them back. And like I said, sometimes they were part of the selling point. I mean, the Frozen short that came out before this was a big hit. You saw girls dressing up in the new outfits that they made for that. They seemed to love it. But again, they were kept to the appropriate time. I'll admit, at about the 12-minute mark, I was looking at my watch saying, are we in the right movie? Shorts are supposed to be short, right? Like, this is a full episode of something you'd see on TV. And it turns out kids and parents were doing the exact same thing. They were wondering if they had the right movie theater. Maybe they walked in on the wrong one. I mean, yeah, they did advertise this before Coco, but people were going to see Coco. And having to wait longer and longer to see the film you paid good money to see was getting on people's nerves. In fact, if they wanted to come back and see Coco again, they realized they'd have to wait 20 minutes before they could see that flick. So people started to get really pissed off. They started to say, the short was terrible, the songs were terrible, we're sick of Frozen, this has gotta stop, knock it off. And while I'm sure there's some people that would watch this and probably not like it on its own, I feel like majority would probably see this on a DVD or on the Disney Channel or whatever and think it's fine. It's still well animated, the songs are good, it has a good lesson. Like I said, if you showed this on its own, people probably wouldn't have a problem with it. But it wasn't shown on its own. It was shown before a big movie that everyone was saying you gotta go see, and on top of the advertisements for the movie theaters, advertisements for other films, advertisements to turn your phone off, you know all the shit that happens before movies. You now also have to sit through a 21-minute short before you can get to your flick. Yeah, it's very understandable why people would get angry at this. But once they took it off of Coco and just released it as its own thing, kids seem to like it fine. I even talk to people who have kids and see it on DVD, showing it to them, and they're like, this is fine, why do people not like it? And I have to explain the story about it running before Coco. So I guess the initial idea behind this review is to say, this is a perfectly fine short. The songs are catchy, it looks very pretty, it gets its point across, it has a few laughs here or there, it's just the right amount of charming. But obviously, you have to know your audience. The audience that wants to see Coco wants to see Coco. So I guess what I'm saying is if you enjoy Frozen and you enjoy that other Frozen short that came out a while ago, check this out. It's actually perfectly fine. I feel bad because it got a lot of hate and I'm sure the people that worked really hard on this were getting bawled out like, yeah, the short is bad, we shouldn't have made it, but it really isn't. It's nothing fantastic or groundbreaking, but it is what it is. It's a cute little short in the Frozen universe that has a nice little message, and it looks nice and sounds nice, and it's a nice little thing for kids. If you're not burned out on Frozen yet, I say this is worth checking out, and it's not that bad, and it has a lot of likability to it. But see it the way it was meant to be seen, on its own. If you are sick of Frozen and never liked Olaf, then yeah, I think it goes without saying you're not gonna get into this. What do you think? You think it's better on its own? Or that just helps you focus on how even more annoying it is? Check it out and give me your thoughts. Merry Christmas! Let's talk about another Disney Christmas property today. Ooh, that's unfortunate. Truth be told, that is the perfect word to use to describe this movie because in many respects, I do kind of feel bad for it. This is one of the few movies I can definitely say is a bad film, but if you want me to tell the truth, it doesn't have that many bad things in it. But how is that possible? I mean, the acting is good, the music is good, the dancing is good. The story is a warped, but still basic telling of the Nutcracker story, which was already a very simple story, and let's face it, we've seen weirder adaptations. The visual style? Good lord, I don't think I've ever seen a movie try so hard to throw so many things at you. The way it's shot, the size of the sets, the colors, the movement, all the crazy ass designs. So what exactly doesn't work about this movie? Well, you might figure it out when I tell you the story. Claire is a young inventor who lives with her family minus her mother, because of course, she be dead. It looks like she left some gifts for everybody though, and she leaves a little metal egg for Claire that doesn't open up unless you have a certain key. Well, they go and visit her inventor uncle, played by Morgan Freeman, who thinks he might have the answers she's looking for if she just walks down this hallway. The hallway, of course, leads to a magical land that's very Narnia-esque at first, and then Alice in Wonderland-esque later, and then Terry Gilliam, Burton, pretty much a lot of stuff you've seen before. And it turns out her mother was a queen of this land, making her a princess, and only she is the metaphorical/literal key that can get this device going that can stop an incredible evil. So tell me this, did anything about what I just said sound interesting or new? Everything in terms of dialogue, story, characters, we've seen done a million times. But here's the thing, it's not done bad per se here. I mean, I've seen this story so many times and people say these lines so terribly and awkward and weird, and they don't really do that here. Truth be told, there's very few moments I can point to where I can say that's bad, that's terrible, that is just laughably horrendous. Throughout a good chunk, I was getting through it fine, but that's the key phrase, getting through it. Everything about this story sort of feels like a bunch of people got together and said, well, these Disney remakes are doing well, maybe we can do some sort of variation. We have Fantasia and the Nutcracker. We'll do kind of a nod here with a scene where there's like conducting and a ballet dancer, and won't ever go back to that again. Just go ahead and do the stuff we normally do, you know, somebody that lost a mother and has to go on a journey, and princesses, fairy tales, a moral about trusting yourself, you know the drill. And yeah, we do know the drill, so well that unless you add something really different or really provocative, it's just not gonna intrigue us anymore. That being said, I can't act like a ton of effort didn't go into this. I mean, look at it, just look at this world, or should I say these worlds. There's like different costumes and different creatures and characters, but it's also kind of overload because they're trying so many different styles that they all don't quite go together, and it's just a little too cluttered. If there were really interesting characters with an interesting story and interesting dialogue, then this would all probably work out fine, and I wouldn't notice it as much. But because every line and every moment feels so stock, it does feel kind of manipulative. The directors of this movie were Lasse Hallström and Joe Johnston, two directors that have made constantly good films. Captain America is good, Chocolat is good, The Rocketeer is good. These are good movies, I'm not gonna say they're bad. But with few exceptions, none of them are really groundbreaking. You don't really hear people talking that much about them years later. Want proof? What's your favorite Captain America movie? Probably not one. But if you're like most people, you like it fine. This is almost a similar film. It's fine. I could see kids going in, watching it, and leaving, and that's that. They probably won't think that much about it, but you know, they'll sit down, they'll watch it. Does that mean it deserves a lot of hate? I personally don't think so. You can tell there was a passion to make this movie as good as it was, they just didn't really know how to do it. Everyone's giving 1,000,000%, but it's unlikely there was one person who this was their passion project. It feels like it was an idea that was passed down from Disney executives and given a lot of notes. Had it done something kind of like it was advertising, like maybe making it sort of a half ballet, half dialogue, half mime, I don't know, playing around with the formula a little bit, it might have been really interesting. As is though, it's incredibly standard. Not awful, just standard. I'm not gonna lie though, I could see some kids watching this at a young age and maybe going back to it years later and having some fond memories of it, because yeah, look at it, those really are some cool visuals and the acting's fine and it's a very basic story, but so is the original Nutcracker. But it's unlikely anyone's gonna look back and be like, wow, this was the lost masterpiece. This really did stuff different. This really had a dark edge or gave a point of view that nobody ever thought about before. It's just modern Disney doing modern Disney. And like I said, that's not horrible, just tired. But who knows, maybe I'm looking at another Christmas classic. I mean, you can never tell with some flicks. Whatever comes of this Christmas film, I certainly hope you have a fantastic Christmas, find a movie or special you always enjoy, and have yourself the merriest of holidays. Just avoid giant Hellamiran robots. Yeah, that was a thing. talked about 2 of the Ernest films that came out in theater, so why not talk about the other 2? The very first one is Ernest Goes to Camp. That title alone sounds like one of the lamest kids' books you've ever read. And yeah, the movie's a little like that. Kinda, if I don't want to be that mean, which I really don't, because it's Ernest. It's stupid, but it's harmless. It's a character who did a ton of commercials that they decided to give a movie to, and they clearly had no idea what to do with him, but man, they're just kind of trying anything in this movie. And sometimes it gets a genuine laugh, but most of the times it's just so awkward and weird and lame that you kind of can't help but laugh. Look at the way it opens. Would you in a million years guess this is an Ernest movie? It's freaking insane. Ernest, played by the late Jim Varney, works at a camp that he absolutely thinks the world of. He loves being with the kids, he loves doing all the traditional camp stuff, even if he does screw up a lot. The kids at first, big surprise, don't get along with Ernest, but over time they find there's kind of a charm to his goofiness, and of course they form a bit of a relationship, and well, he's always there when the big bad bully kids are always making fun of them, and oh no, will they beat them in the end? Well, we'll have to hold off because there's this big bad construction group, yeah, there's a lot of big bad groups in this, that are trying to tear down the camp. But with Ernest's help and these 2 goofy chefs that have a food launching machine, their awful cooking might cook something up to stop those big bad baddies. Okay, so as the Ernest movies go, and I know that's a very strange sentence to say, this is usually the one that's kind of forgotten and not too many people really talk about. I mean, most people talk about Ernest Saves Christmas, or Ernest Goes to Jail, or even Ernest Scared Stupid, but this was the first one, and for whatever reason, a lot of people don't really talk about it. Well, maybe the more I think about it, I can kind of see why. It definitely has its run-of-the-mill slapstick and Jim Varney being over the top and a little bit of heart here and there. But the strange thing about it is, it's actually kind of boring. Oh, don't get me wrong, there's moments of absolute insanity in it, but you gotta wade through a lot of run-of-the-mill stuff. For example, the kids are pretty dull. The strong emotional support is just there to be the strong emotional support, and the bad guys are just bad guys, and the bullies are just bullies, and the only time when it really shines is when it does something batshit crazy. Whether it gets a legitimate laugh or an awkward laugh. For example, the movie is really building up the legend of the worthy warrior, someone who has so much courage and so much heart that no weapon could penetrate him. Well, can you guess who that warrior is? The idea of Ernest being this individual is so ludicrous, you kinda can't help but really snicker loudly at it. There's just such a naive stupidity to it that it's kinda hard not to fall in love with it. I'm actually kinda shocked the song I'm Glad It's Raining is not a better well-known song. Maybe because it's in this movie and the movie is usually forgotten, but hearing it again, it's actually really well written, poignant, and goddamn depressing even. I kinda can't believe how wrapped up I was getting in it. But yeah, like any of the entertaining moments in this movie, whether good or bad, you gotta wade through a lot of boredom to get to it. I guess I say if you are an Ernest fan, check it out. You'll definitely get Ernest doing his usual stuff. And if you kinda like those old 80s camp movies like Meatballs and so forth, it's got that vibe going with it too. But it's really nothing special. For me, I'm glad I saw it again just for those incredibly weird, awkward moments, and yeah, like I said, that song was pretty cool to hear again. But if you're looking for something more, I'd say this is a camp you don't need to go to. Well, I can't do this many Ernest movies without talking about this one. Ernest Goes to Jail is arguably the strangest of these Ernest movies, and yeah, I guess I am kind of saying that as a pro. I mean, not that it's especially good, but it is very odd and creative, and yeah, as a little kid, I really loved it. As an adult, I really loved it. Ernest P. Worrell is back as a janitor in a bank. One night, he once again messes up and gets electrocuted, causing him to suddenly be magnetized. 'Cause that's how it works. For a while, this seems to be the biggest problem of the movie until we see that in jail, he has a doppelganger named Nash, also played by Jim Varney. When Ernest is chosen for jury duty, one of the criminals sees him and realizes that he looks exactly like Nash. So the lawyer persuades the judge to allow the jury to go to the prison to see where the crime happened, because, this happens all the time. And Nash knocks Ernest out and they switch places. Ernest for the longest time thinks this is just part of being in jury duty until he's finally put in the cell and realizes he's there to stay. Meanwhile, you have an escaped criminal work at a bank and, well, guess what he wants to do? Nash plans to rob the bank as well as put the moves on Ernest's girlfriend, so Ernest has to break out of prison as quickly as possible, while also avoiding the electric chair. And, spoiler alert, he gets the chair. Yeah, like I said, it's a weird movie. I have a strange love-hate relationship with these films because with both this and Ernest Saves Christmas, I feel like they're just 100% targeting kids. Not adults and not little kids, but kids say between 5 and 11. If you're not in that age range, there's probably not going to be much for you, but if you are, these are really funny, imaginative, crazy movies. I mean, look at this prison. Who's ever seen a pink prison? Look at that electric chair. How big is that thing? Who the hell can even fit in that? Only in this world could somebody get electrocuted 3 or 4 times, and every single time he doesn't die, he just gets magnetized. And that's the side story. Any other movie, that would be the main focus. He'd be like a weird superhero, but no, that's like the side thing in this film. So unlike Ernest Goes to Camp or Ernest Scared Stupid, I do think this and the Christmas one are much better. There's more atmosphere, more creativity, more of a beginning, middle, and end story. They're just really silly and stupid. Everybody is over the top or has a cartoony voice or doesn't talk at all. It's something kids would really latch onto, but it doesn't really carry over a ton into adulthood. So it's tricky. If you're an adult and you didn't grow up with this or Ernest Saves Christmas, you're probably not going to be that sucked in by him. However, if you're a kid or you saw these as a kid, I think you will find some strange value. They really are kind of like live-action Saturday morning cartoons, not the ones that stick with you for years, but the ones that gave you a little bit of a laugh while it was on. That has some merit to it in my opinion. So, is it fun? It depends on when you see it. I don't see these movies really being talked about much now, but I feel like over time they might get a little bit of a resurgence. Again, not really for adults, but from other kids. Kids that say, remember that weird guy who talked strange and he could suddenly fly and things would stick to him and cabinets were following him and he was in a prison where the cops wore purple and he got the electric chair but it didn't even hurt him. Oh, and there's 2 of him. That was a weird ass thing. Maybe I should check it out again to see if it's as weird as I remember. I guess what I'm saying is it's a very specific type of audience who would like these movies. But if you're a kid at heart that just wants to see a slapsticky Looney Tunes cartoon, not a great one, but a decent one, then maybe this Ernest movie is worth a view. So you might be wondering why I'm reviewing The Good Dinosaur again. I mean, you saw me and my brother talk about it and rip it to shreds and agree with everyone that it's absolutely awful, but something about that didn't feel right. I couldn't explain it, just even though I was angry and I was laughing at it, something just felt a little off being so mean to it. So I decided to put it on and watch it again. And yeah, it's still not good, but I have to be honest, it's not as bad as I remember it. I think all the talks of production troubles and the high expectations I expect out of Pixar really threw me off balance, and when I look back on it, there is some stuff I actually think is okay. In a very bizarre parallel universe, but in some strange way not bizarre enough, dinosaurs and humans live at the exact same time. While one dinosaur family tries to build a home, a little brontosaurus loses his father. He has to journey a long distance to find his true home, and along the way he comes across a little cave boy, who acts more like a dog than an actual human. That's a funny idea. The dinosaur hates the cave boy because he blames him for his father's death. But over time, as you'd imagine, a little bit of a friendship forms and they learn to live with each other and help each other survive. Along the way, he comes across other dinosaurs, some strange, some even stranger in many ways, who try to get him home as the cave boy himself tries to figure out where his true home is. So yeah, it's already kind of an odd idea, but like I said, not one that's super crazy. I mean, okay, dinosaurs and people living at the same time. It's odd, but it's been done before in crazier ways, like in Dinosaurs and Flintstones and so forth. The meshing of ideas in this movie is about as unbalanced as, well, honestly, the backgrounds and the foregrounds of it. The backgrounds in this movie are unbelievable. Every single time I look at it, I swear they're real. I swear I'm just looking at this beautiful sunset and these real rocks, but then you just see these really fake, weirdly designed, cartoony dinosaurs that are just so distracting. I'm not gonna act like the CG in Dinosaur was anything great, but at least it kinda matched that more realistic background. Here, it's just so odd. The world tries to have some references to modern day stuff, like these kind of weird cowboy dinosaurs that don't ride horses but kind of run like they're half horse, half cowboy. It's so weird. The young dinosaur gets really whiny really quick, and I don't think that's the actor's fault. Again, it's just not an especially well-written character. The cave boy at times is a little interesting, but maybe that's because he never talks, and a lot of his expression has to be done through just his big dog-like eyes and weird movements, and I don't know, there's almost something there. Like when he sees other cave people and they kinda do want to get closer but don't want to get closer, and there's no talking at all, it's just very atmospheric, and a scene like that I almost felt really leapt off the screen and was really powerful, but just something doesn't quite fit. Maybe because there's not a clear vision of this movie, it never came across as anything that strong. But as I say that, I have to admit it's not one of the worst visions I've seen, it's just kinda clumsy. It's like it needed one more rewrite, okay, 2 more rewrites. But they were on a deadline and couldn't get them in time. You hear stories all the time about movies that have terrible productions and go from director to director and writer to writer and producer to producer, and yeah, I guess this is one of those movies and you can clearly tell, but at the same time, I've seen worse movies like that. It is still a very basic journey film about 2 characters that have to bond, and there is a lot of nice scenery and starts of good ideas and some quiet moments and some scenes that are almost heavy but don't quite hit. So yeah, it's not good, but I do feel a little bad that I was hating on it as much as I was before. Watching it again, there are definitely some positive elements, and the bad elements aren't as, I don't know, nerve-wracking as I let on. I feel like a lot of people worked hard to pull something out of this, something that at least looked decent, and yeah, it does look decent. Not great, especially by Pixar standards, but you can show a little kid this and it would be totally fine. So I'll give it that. It's a totally fine little kids movie as long as you don't really think about it like you would most Pixar films. But it is a Pixar film, and we do hold them to a very high standard. So I guess what I'm getting to is, The Good Dinosaur is bad, but not as bad as I originally thought. So a while ago, I put out a poll seeing if people want me to review the movie Smart House and the movie Princess Protection Program. Overwhelmingly, people said Smart House, and I found it to be a pretty good movie. But over time, some viewers pointed out, you forgot to review Princess Protection Program. Oh yeah. Whoops. Well, here it is now, and all I gotta say is, wow, Smart House was a good movie. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting with a movie called Princess Protection Program, but I was expecting, I guess, a little bit more than this. I know that sounds weird, but ever since I did that Disneycember where I looked over a lot of the Disney Channel movies, I was surprised by a couple of them. And with this concept that, yeah, definitely sounds like a Disney Channel plot, after seeing movies like Smart House, I guess I was expecting a little more, especially with such good actresses. Selena Gomez plays a girl in Louisiana whose father is part of, you guess it, the Princess Protection Program. Wouldn't you know it, there's a princess, played by Demi Lovato, who's about to be crowned queen, but suddenly an evil general takes over and they have to get her to safety. With her mother being left behind, they put her in the Princess Protection Program. Yeah, apparently this is something that's really in demand. If you're a prince, king, or queen, you're pretty much shit out of luck, but let's face it, princesses are more marketable. Even down to selling the same dresses. Look at that, they look exactly alike. Anyway, their brilliant plan is to put her undercover in a high school, because yeah, a princess in a Louisiana high school won't stand out at all. She's supposed to act like she's from Ohio and not this Spanish-speaking country that apparently is so small it's not on most maps. And she's only told this once she's at the school. There is like no background given to her. She's just expected to know all the ways that a normal teenager is supposed to act, and it's like, what are you doing? No member of royalty is gonna blend in bowling when they've never seen bowling in their life. No sheltered ruler is gonna know how to operate an ice cream shop. What the hell? I know that sounds like nitpicking because, again, Disney Channel movie, it's for kids, but part of the fun is believing the fantasy, and I feel like even kids would question a lot of the things going on in this. For example, what's the setup you would assume with this situation? You would think the princess is really stuck up and snobby and she has to learn how to live among common people, but no! It's Selena Gomez's character that's like really bratty and mean and doesn't give her a chance. They don't even really give her a reason why. I think they're hinting that the father's gone a lot, and because this new girl is here, she has to ask the father a lot of questions and she trusts him and she gets kind of jealous of that, but they don't really dive into it like, oh, again, something like Smart House did. She's supposed to not draw attention to herself and, you know, feel really bad because she's missing her mother, but every other second she's doing everything she can to draw everybody's focus on her. She stands up in the middle of lunch and nominates her best friend to be homecoming queen. Well, that's pretty stupid, seeing how anyone can just look in a magazine and recognize you. In fact, that's what happens. Later in the movie, this country that's apparently on few maps is in this magazine with these giant pictures drawing attention to her. Nothing about this makes sense. And again, this wouldn't be as big a deal if the characters were likable or unique or charming, and these are two really funny actresses. I mean, okay, Camp Rock wasn't very good, but Demi Lovato did have kind of this awkward charm to her. Selena Gomez has proven she can be very funny in Wizards of Waverly Place. And here, God help them, you can tell they're trying, but they're just not given anything with this script. It's just the most generic lines and dialogue, talking about what it means to be a princess and what it means to be true to yourself and to your heart. Friendship, loyalty, it's about more than just trying on dresses. So they have a montage where they help some people, and guess what? The majority of it is them trying on dresses. Yeah, we know where your focus is at. All the other characters are cutouts, from the jock boy to the bully girl. Somewhere I imagine there's a bizarro universe where these two talents are utilized and someone actually says, let's make something of this script. Let's take some time and throw in some good jokes and some unique ideas. But in this universe, we get a product that must have been rushed. I mean, it just must have. Everything about it just feels so uninspired and boring and run-of-the-mill. Every time I see these two on screen, I see the movie it could be. I see these really good actresses that can bring a lot of joy to a performance, but no, we have to have Gomez act like a brat for no reason, and Lovato then talk about how she misses her mother, and Gomez says, let's start over, and that's what they do, except she starts being a brat again for no reason. It's so lame and predictable, right down to spelling out the moral of the story every other second. Ugh, it's the worst kind of bad. The bad that isn't so terrible it's kind of fun. It's just bland and forgettable. Is there anything bad for kids in it? I don't think so. I mean, at least there is a little talking about helping other people, which I guess is more than something like The Princess Diaries did. But it's not really focused on, and the motivations constantly jump around so much, you're not really gonna learn too much of a good lesson. If you have a nostalgic soft spot for it, fair enough. But I think this is a princess movie that's definitely not worth saving. You know, it's funny. Over the years, I've always said try to accept an art form for what it is and not always what it can be. And I find myself more and more kind of telling myself, man, what this could be. And maybe that's because when I see something repeated, I'm like, I've already seen that. I want to see something new or something that worked before and hasn't been seen on the big screen. Like, oh, I don't know, this incredible book that had a huge impact on my life and a lot of people's lives and was given a cute, but nothing groundbreaking adaptation. And then a new version comes along saying it's gotta be more faithful to the original source and everybody's praising it. They're just saying how incredible it is, and then you check it out and it's combining it with the cutesy adaptation. In fact, it's more the cutesy adaptation, and anything they have from the original is really odd and doesn't match, and it's like, what's wrong? It doesn't even work in terms of the adaptation. Okay. A lot of people like this movie. I don't really see it, but maybe that's not what I should be talking about here. What I'm trying to focus on is if you take away the original source material, like let's say we never heard of the Jungle Book, the original stories, the animated Disney version, all that stuff, it's just its own movie, what would I think of this? I suppose I would say it's passable. I think the only thing that would really leave an impact on me would be the technology, because my god, when I saw this, I had no idea there were no shots outside. That really blew my mind. I think that's one of the reasons so many critics got on board with it, because they were probably blown away by that too, and I don't blame them. I mean, look at this. It looks like they're really outside, and a lot of the animals, are kind of hit and miss whether or not you believe they're really there, but it's still pretty impressive. But the story and tone is still kind of all over the place, and I think that's because they're trying to combine it with the harsher tone of the original book, but still try to be that cute, charming Disney version that a lot of us know. I know I've already reviewed this as a Nostalgia Critic episode, but I'm trying to come back to it with a little bit more of an open mind just to see where people are coming from. And even if I don't agree, I still think it's important to see what point of view other people have. Mowgli is a little boy who's raised by wolves. The fierce tiger, Shere Khan, has hated Mowgli for years because he killed his family and wasn't able to kill him, so he sees him as prey he never managed to get. Mowgli runs away, being told he has to go to the Man Kingdom, but he comes across a bear named Baloo, played by Bill Murray. He likes Mowgli because he can go and get honey for him, and the more they stick around, the more they form a bit of a friendship, singing, of course, the bare necessities. But not only is the panther Bagheera, played by Ben Kingsley, trying to hunt him down and take him to the Man Village, but we also have Shere Khan, who's holding his family hostage, I guess, and has a hit put out on him. And King Louie, the ruler of the monkeys, voiced surprisingly well by Christopher Walken, who wants to use him so he can figure out the secret of fire, or the red flower. At first, I thought Walken was probably gonna be the best thing in this movie, and not for the reasons you would think. When he comes out, he's legit intimidating. Like, he has this really serious voice, and he's kept in the shadows, and it's kinda like talking to this old gangster. It surprisingly really works. But you know, sing the stupid song, even though at no other point has this ever been established as a musical. I mean, Baloo's just singing, it's just a song he's singing. It's not like everybody stops and sings with him, it's just a song. Here, it's suddenly a musical, and we're near the end of the flick. But with that said, looking at it from a different point of view, I guess it is kind of funny. I mean, it's Christopher Walken singing, and it's weird, and it's awkward, and it's like, yeah, I can see how someone could kind of get a laugh out of this. Even the movie almost seems to be playing it up as a laugh, like, yeah, we're doing this, look, Christopher Walken is singing this song, what? And I guess I can see where you're coming from with that. The climax comes down to Mowgli convincing all the animals to stand up against Shere Khan, even though, yeah, wasn't that the law of the jungle before? So, again, didn't they follow this? Okay, calm down. I guess from the viewpoint of someone who's only seen the animated Disney version and hasn't read the book or seen any of the other adaptations, would maybe look at this as a more adult version. I mean, look at that tiger. It's a creepy tiger. Look at some of this imagery. It's very intense. The boy, while I never saw as a great performance, is still doing a pretty damn good job considering he's just a little kid, he's acting along literally nothing, and he has to pretend he's in the jungle talking to his best friend, a bear, while this tiger that's not really there in this tree that's not really there is trying to get him. The ending I won't give away, but for me, it's kind of an insult. Not because it's not like the original book, though that does have a phenomenal ending, but because it's not like the animated one either. The animated one had this beautiful, almost haunting song with this girl going to this pond and just singing this kind of eerie lullaby that kind of draws Mowgli in, and he's realizing what he is and where he belongs, and it's kind of this beautiful, strange scene. It's almost hypnotic. But it's also cute and funny, and like the majority of the film, it's unbelievably charming. This one just ends on a whatever note. It's just kind of a nothing ending. Like everything that was important about the original book and the animated version just isn't important here. But like I said, if I never knew the book and all I knew was the original Disney version, I would probably see this as a heavier, darker version that, yeah, had some plot holes that didn't make sense, but I probably wouldn't be reading that deep into anyway, because my general consensus with the Jungle Book that I get from people is that they like it. Yeah, on to the next thing. You remember it, but it doesn't leave a huge impact or anything. So okay, wrapping up, looking at it from the mindset of someone who's only seen the animated one, I guess I can see how they would say, this is alright, it's fine. The technology is arguably a game changer, and it does, I guess, the bare minimum of what a Disney live-action remake of The Jungle Book would be, and as these remakes go, the bare minimum is not a bad bar to hit. It is harsher than the animated one, it is more intense, but it's hard for me to say it's darker, because darker implies there's a lot more weight to what's going on, and I just don't get that here. But especially when you get to the end, there's not as big an impact. I think that's why now when people look back on it, they say, yeah, that was good, but not great. But people do look back at the animated Jungle Book and say, yeah, I really like that, and they can't always quite say why, there's just something really likable about it. So let's agree on that. Whether you like this new one or not, the original is a lot more likable. Even though it was coming from an original source material, it kinda did its own thing, where this one's trying to combine a lot of stuff and they don't quite work, but hey, that technology's cool and wasted a few minutes with a kinda more intense story, so there you go. So looking at it from a different point of view, I get it. I can see why people enjoy this fine. Is it my thing? Definitely not. Do I recommend you check out the book or other adaptations, especially the Chuck Jones one? Big time. But not to change your opinion about this, just to give you a different version of the story that you might find fascinating. And before you ask, yes, I did see the Andy Serkis one, which is also not very good. It kind of has the opposite problem. It tries to throw too much of the book in too fast. But I guess that's neither here or there. I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm coming from a place where I couldn't conceive how anyone could like this movie. And now I do understand it. I see it from a different point of view. So if you enjoy it, more power to you. For me, I'm gonna put on that Chuck Jones version again. To each their own, man. Last year I ended Disneycember with Infinity War, one of the biggest Marvel movies, if not biggest movies that was ever made at the time. This year, I'm finishing it with something that's the exact opposite in every way possible. The Straight Story. Chances are you never even heard of it. It's a David Lynch movie unlike any David Lynch movie, and I want to end Disneycember on it because it honestly changed the way I look at cinema. I know that sounds strange, and honestly, it'll sound even stranger if you've seen the film, but this really was a movie that kind of forced me to watch other movies in a new light. The story, based on real-life events, is about as simple as you can imagine. There's an old farmer who's been estranged from his brother for years. News reaches him, though, that he's deathly ill, and there's a chance he may never see him again. The farmer is very old and doesn't have good enough eyesight to have a driver's license, so he does the only thing he can think of. He gets on his little lawn tractor and he drives days and days and days to go see his brother. And, I'll be brutally honest, it's as boring as it sounds. This movie, in many respects, is insufferable. When I saw the trailer and I heard all the good things being said about it, I thought the idea was, oh, he's gonna come across all these people whose lives he changed and really touched their hearts, and yeah, there's one or two, but a lot of it is just him on this goddamn little machine. He doesn't really talk to himself, there's no inner monologue, it's not exactly like he's the most complicated guy, he's actually very simple. We just see him on this stupid thing, see where he takes breaks and relaxes for the night or eats or whatever. Once in a while, and I do mean a while, come across a person, and then he's back on the road. It is relentlessly monotonous. Most of the time I was asking myself, why am I watching this? Why did this get rave reviews? Why was everyone saying this is really, really great? In fact, how is this even a David Lynch movie? I remember his films have all this weird shit and abstract imagery, and it's always left really vague what they're about, but this, I don't know, are we supposed to imagine the abstract imagery there? Like maybe he's hallucinating? None of this seems to be adding up to me. But then we get to the ending, and I won't ruin it, though honestly there's not a ton to ruin. When he finally gets there, everything made sense. And to some, maybe it won't. Maybe you'll just be like, I just watched this damn movie of this guy on this stupid ass little tractor for like an hour and a half. I want my friggin' money back. And I would totally understand that. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm above you, I get the secret meaning or anything. It's like, no, I get it. There's people that are just not gonna get into this at all. And I completely sympathize. But for me, I realized this film was all about the journey. It was all about showing how boring, how slow, how monotonous, and how long this took just to see his brother. It's kinda like those movies where people go through these terrible things and they suffer, but they make it at the end and they're like, wow, now I see the value of life. I see the importance of our actions. In this very strange, super simple film, I got a similar feeling. The reason this changed the way I look at movies is because it made me realize an entire movie can completely transform literally in the last minute. I've never seen a film do that before. Go from something that was so annoying, so boring, so hard to sit through, and then suddenly at the end you're like, oh my god, I get it. I get everything that this person went through. It challenges me in both a complex but also very simple way, which I think David Lynch is all about. I like how he takes the medium and he tries to do things that aren't conventional. He doesn't always have to go beginning, middle, and end. It doesn't always have to be a character arc. It doesn't always have to be something that's been done a million times. It feels like he always tries to go to that realm of being half awake and half asleep, that weird in-between that's hard to explain, but exists. That world in between being conscious and unconscious. And even in a movie like this, with him just driving on this road, it kinda works that way. Whether he's going in and out of focus, or even you're going in and out of focus, it creates a unique experience. And like I said before, it may not be your experience, and I really want to emphasize that's totally relatable. This is not one of those movies where if you like it, you understand the meaning of life or something. You're suddenly a lot deeper. All I can say is it changed the way I looked at film as an art form. In the most simple, different, and aggravating way that I feel only David Lynch could do. The Straight Story is both exactly that and anything but. It even has a G rating. How often do you see that in a film that's not meant for kids? The unconventional yet clever way it tells this simple story I think is just brilliant. And if it's not something you get into, fair enough. But I do say it is worth taking a chance to see if you do. Maybe it'll leave a major impact, maybe it'll leave no impact. But I adored it for everything it did and everything it didn't do. And folks, that's it for this year's Disneycember. I think I'm gonna keep doing this where I just kind of review everything that Disney does over the years. There's no real theme or connection, but I kinda like adding to it every year as well. So next year I'll still look over their movies, modern and old, animated and live action, and I'll also throw in their TV shows. But I think every year I'll add a different element to it too. Some new angle or genre I haven't looked at yet. I love doing this every year and I'm so thankful that everybody comes back and listens to what I have to say. It's just the nicest feeling knowing that people share the same love for cinema and Disney and hand-drawn animation, CG animation, live action, whatever. It's always a ton of fun to talk about and I can't wait to talk about it next year. Thanks once more and I'll see you then.